Okay, I'm going to start by welcoming everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Wat Tong Yu. Welcome to everyone online as well. We're going to be starting the second day of our program with some meditation like we do each day. So we're going to do some chanting to ease into the meditation. This is going to help you to get more benefit out of the meditation. And remember, this isn't a rite or ritual or ceremony, worship or prayer or anything like that. This is just helping to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Then I'm going to provide you some guidance for the meditation. There's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And that's where I'll start today's topic, which is the Eightfold Path, the path for all humans to enlightenment. I'm going to teach you the ins and outs of this. This is how you would actually train your mind to get to the enlightened mental state. Then after our lunch break, I'm going to come back this afternoon and teach you all the ins and outs of meditation, because by that point, students that have been here, you guys will have experienced meditation at least 3 times by the time we would have gotten to that point. So then it's a good time to teach you all the ins and outs of meditation. So if you'd like to join for the meditation, you're welcome to do so. You're welcome to join in for the chanting, and then I'll come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Otang Mahakewanang Apivate Ami Savakato Mahakewata Tammo Namang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Savakasangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakewa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale in through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาโอตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังปุตโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see everyone this morning. Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to everyone online as well. The Buddha taught this enlightened mental state, how to attain this mental state where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. This is enlightenment, where the mind no longer experiences any discontent feelings, where you've eliminated all your anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. By the time you get to this enlightened mental state, the mind's focused. You have concentration, clarity, and deep memory because you've uprooted certain pollutions that are in the mind. Those 10 fetters that we were talking about yesterday, those have been uprooted out of the mind. So the mind's now performing optimally. An individual's personal and professional relationships are really blossoming. They're at ease because you don't have bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind any longer. You'll notice that you're not even in a bad mood, that it's physically impossible for you to experience a bad mood. It's through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that this is occurring. And it's this eightfold path that is that gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. You would need to know this teaching inside and out, backwards and forwards, like the back of your hand, in order to be able to get to enlightenment. So if this is your first time learning this, it's great because you're going to be learning with the original words of the Buddha. But just understand, you're going to need to learn it more than one time. You're not going to be able to learn something like this and snap your fingers and instantly implement this perfectly. You're going to need to tweak this. In fact, these 8 individual steps, the way that I think about it is I think about it like a sound system. If you had a speaker system and you had these 8 dials and you were tweaking these dials to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, that's what you're doing with your mind, is you're tweaking these 8 individual dials to get a better performing mind. So I'm going to walk you through this today, where you can learn right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. We're going to take a mid-morning break, and then we're going to continue from there so that you guys can really take your time to really soak this in. This is organized into 3 sections: wisdom section, moral conduct section, and the mental discipline section. And I'm going to be pausing as we go to see what questions you guys have. If there's anything you guys would like clarity on, you guys are going to be able to ask questions as we go. For here at the temple, you guys know we have these microphones. If you guys could use the microphones in the white bowl, that way the people online will be able to hear you. All you need to do is press that gray button, the lights will come on, and then you can speak into the mic. And then you can keep these with you because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question. And then if you could turn it off when you're not using it, that way we won't get feedback through the speakers. And then for anyone who's joining online, you can ask questions through putting your question in the comment section of Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand electronically and ask any and all questions that you like. So this Eightfold Path starts with right view. This is the foundation that makes up all the other teachings of the Buddha. If you didn't understand right view, you wouldn't understand anything about what the Buddha has to share with you. So he shares with his new students right view from the very beginning. Whenever a new student would start to learn with the Buddha, he would start them off with right view. Right view, in the words of the Buddha, is here. He says, in what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view. These are the words of the Buddha. And whenever you're learning the teachings of the Buddha, you would like to learn with his original words. And I know that sounds like, well, of course, like what else would you do, right? But you'd be surprised. There's 500 million people in the world that consider themselves to be Buddhist. Very few of them actually study with the original words of the Buddha. I've been to over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to one temple that shares the original words of the Buddha. That's less than 1%. So out of that 500 million people, we could say that less than 1% of those actually study with the original words of the Buddha. So you would like to have reliable translations and actually use his original words to study his teachings, because that's what's actually going to lead to your enlightenment. And then you don't believe his teachings, you learn them, you investigate them, examine them, you reflect on them to independently verify them, and then you practice them, integrating them into your day-to-day life. That's what's actually going to help you cultivate the needed wisdom to then move the mind to enlightenment. So here, this is the words of the Buddha on right view, and he's describing in the Eightfold Path what is right view. And what he's doing is he's pointing to another teaching. He's pointing to something called the Four Noble Truths. Underneath of this line right here, I have the top section of the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths goes on from here, but what I'm doing is I'm helping you to build the confidence that what he's doing in right view in the Eightfold Path is that he is indeed pointing to the Four Noble Truths, helping you to see that connection between these two teachings. Because the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that everything else integrates into. So he's not going to repeat the whole Four Noble Truths in the Eightfold Path because it integrates everything in together. So what I'm going to do now that you guys can see this connection between the Eightfold Path of what is right view and the Four Noble Truths, I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths so that you understand what they are. And in order to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand the 3 universal truths. Now, we call these truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true. But in order for you to benefit, you need to know that they're true. And that's why you don't believe the teachings. You need to learn, examine, investigate, reflect to verify if they're true or false, and you need to practice them in order to be able to integrate the teachings of the Buddha into your day-to-day life. Whenever you're learning the teachings of the Buddha, he teaches you to learn with eager ears, where you're actively working to learn his teachings. That's what you're going to need to do in order to be able to cultivate the needed wisdom to be able to move the mind to enlightenment. Because the Buddha's not teaching you the way the world should be. He's not giving you a bunch of rules and commandments. And if everybody follows these rules and this is the way the world should be and everybody should do things this way, then the world's going to become peaceful. He's not doing that. He's not giving you rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship and prayers to do. That's not what he's doing. He's helping you to be able to see how the world is. So he's not teaching you the way the world should be. He's teaching you the way the world is. You're awakening to these natural laws that the Buddha shared. He's going to help you to understand how the world is. So starting with this first universal truth, he's going to help you to understand how the world is. And by understanding how the world is, now you can navigate the world more and more peacefully. So what he's describing here in this first universal truth is that the world is impermanent, that the world is constantly changing, that things arise, they change, and they fade away. This is called impermanence. So there's something called conditioned objects. Conditioned objects will arise, they will change, and then they will fade away. Okay, this is how the world is. Now, you don't believe that. You look around the world to independently verify it for yourself. Anything you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, it's all impermanent. It's constantly changing. So you can look around the world to independently verify this for yourself. There are things called unconditioned objects. So everything in the material world is a conditioned object. It will arise, change, and fade away. But there are things called unconditioned objects. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. The natural laws of existence are this way. These natural laws that the Buddha taught, they're unconditioned. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. That's why his teachings are timeless. What he taught 2,500 years ago is just as applicable today as it was 2,500 years ago, because these natural laws haven't changed. And enlightenment itself, when you attain enlightenment, it's a permanent mental state, because the mind is then unconditioned and it will no longer experience any conditional feelings. The mind is now in this unconditioned mental state. So everything you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, are all impermanent. So now don't believe that, because that's the intellectual learning. It just takes me 2 or 3 minutes to teach that to you. That's the intellectual part. Now move it into reflection, because you need to be able to reflect and look around the world to see the truth for yourself. Because you don't believe me, you don't believe other people, don't believe anything I write in books. You need to see the wisdom for yourself. So ask yourself, is this body permanent or is it impermanent? If this body is permanent, that means it's been exactly the same your entire life. If it's impermanent, there's constant change with the body. So what would you say? Is the body permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? Ever since egg and the sperm came together, it's constantly changing, right? We get taller, we get shorter, we get bigger, we get smaller, right? We get pimples and moles and wrinkles, and our hair changes, our texture, the color. Some people, we lose our hair, our teeth grow in, they fall out, then it grows back in. This is constant change with the physical body. What about your relationships? If your relationships are permanent, you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life. If your relationships are impermanent, you've had people coming and going in and out of your life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? They're constantly changing. People are coming and going in and out of your life all throughout your life. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? Impermanent? You'd like it to be permanent though, wouldn't you? Right? It's impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. That's impermanence, right? Some people's goes down, 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 right? That's impermanence too, right? What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent. It's constantly changing, right? So we could go on and on and on and on, right? We can even look at the class here, right? Like we had certain people here yesterday. Now there's different people here, right? That's impermanence. You guys started out sitting in one location. Now you've changed. You're sitting in a different location, right? We can look around the temple. We can see the wood planks on the floor. Some of them are longer, shorter. Some of them are darker or lighter, right? You can look at the trees. You can see that there's green leaves in the trees and brown leaves on the ground. This is impermanence. When you're walking down the street on the sidewalk, you see a crack in the sidewalk. That's impermanence. Sometimes here in Thailand, the sidewalks go up and down, right? You got to walk up the sidewalk and down the sidewalk, depending on where you are. Some streets have sidewalks, some streets don't. This is impermanence. So you're going to experience constant change in the world around you. This is a building block that's going to help you to understand the Four Noble Truths by the time we get to it. Each of these are that. So here, you need to be able to look around the world and independently verify that things are constantly changing. Don't believe that, but you need to be able to see it for yourself, because this is a building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. Then there's the universal truth of discontentedness. This is where the Buddha describes the unenlightened mind and what an unenlightened being is going to experience. If you've studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard the word suffering being used. I don't use this word because it doesn't accurately reflect what the Buddha was teaching about this important topic, but I'm going to first explain to you what the Buddha taught on this, and then I'm going to circle back and help you understand why I don't use the word suffering. So the word in the original source text is the word dukkha. This translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. And what the Buddha is describing here is what the unenlightened mind experiences. There's three feelings: pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. The pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. Very pleasant to experience this. And these are conditioned. Based on some condition, you're going to experience happiness. Then there's painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. Very painful for the mind to experience this. And this is also conditional. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant. I put boredom and loneliness here. Some people say that's painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category. But shyness is a good example of that, right? It's not painful. It's not pleasant. It's neither painful nor pleasant. Or if someone you didn't know came in and sat really close to you on public transportation and your body was touching their body, you might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant. Maybe your mind's dissatisfied or uncomfortable in that situation. That's the neither painful nor pleasant. So these are what's called conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, your mind is then going to experience a feeling. So for example, if it's sunny outside and you get pleasant feelings, you get really happy and excited, that's a conditioned feeling. Right? Based on the condition that the sun is present, then you will experience happiness. But the problem with this is then when it rains, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. If you base your inner feelings on something like the sun, that sun is not permanent. So that means your happiness isn't permanent. That's why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because the unenlightened mind is basing its inner feelings on something that is not permanent. It's impermanent. And then the same thing with these other feelings, right? They're all conditioned. So an unenlightened being, they might wake up in the morning and see it's sunny outside and get so happy and so excited. Yay, I'm going to go hiking today. Oh, I've been wanting to go on this trail for so long. I'm going to call my friends and we're going to go out and have a good time. Oh, it's going to be so great. You're so excited. Then you go take a shower and you come out and you see it's raining. And now you're frustrated or angry or annoyed. This is what an unenlightened being experiences. But an enlightened being is beyond this. An enlightened being is already happy before they woke up. They're experiencing unconditioned happiness, where there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for there to be happiness in the mind. They see it's sunny outside. They're like, sweet, I'm going to go hiking today. I'm going to call my friends. This is going to be a great time. We've been interested to go on this trail for a really long time. This is outstanding. Now you go take a shower and you come out and it's raining. It's like, all right, well, I guess I'm not going hiking today. Guess I'll maybe go to the mall. Maybe I'll stay home and read a book. Maybe I'll invite my friends over and we can have some dinner, right? Your mind can maintain its happiness and joy because you didn't base your happiness on the sun. So therefore, when the sun is gone, you can still maintain your happiness. So the enlightened mind is beyond this pleasure and pain. The mind is experiencing unconditioned mental qualities where it's just cheerful and bright and glad and uplifted at all times because it's not basing its inner feelings on some condition. An enlightened being doesn't experience conditioned feelings. They experience unconditioned mental qualities where the mind is just always in this mental state. So I refer to this as discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. This is where the mind's shaken up. It's unsteady. It's uncalm. So some people refer to this as suffering. You might have heard this if you've studied in other places. The word suffering explains these painful feelings really well. When you're angry or sad or frustrated or stressed or having anxiety, probably say you were suffering. When you have guilt and shame and fear, probably say you were suffering. But if your boss walked into your office and gave you a $20,000 a year raise, you got really excited about that, would you say you were suffering? Probably not. right? Or if maybe you were sitting really close to someone on public transportation and your body was touching their body and you felt a little bit of displeasure there, probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation. So the word suffering that people have been using for so long, it explains these painful feelings, but it doesn't explain the pleasant ones in the neither painful nor pleasant. So that means you're only understanding 33% of what the Buddha has to share if you use the word suffering. So you'd be missing 66% of his teachings. And if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever get to the goal? So what you need to be able to do in order to get to enlightenment is understand this discontentedness of where the mind is shaken up. It's unsteady. It's uncalm. Have you ever been so excited you like tripped and fell, or you like dropped something and broke it? Right? That's the unsteadiness. That's the instability of the mind in the unenlightened state. When you're having conditioned feelings, you're going to experience this unsteadiness of the mind. So you need to be able to see these conditioned pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones, right? When we talk about conditioned pleasant feelings, what the mind's doing in the unenlightened state is it has all these conditions that have to be met in order for there to be happiness. It's like, if my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if my bank account is this, if I have this kind of house and this kind of car, then I'll be happy, right? So your happiness actually shrinks because all those conditions can't be met permanently. It's not possible. So the enlightened mind is beyond this, where they're not experiencing conditional happiness, where it's really shrunk down under certain situations. You can only be happy if this occurs. An enlightened being is beyond this, where they have unconditioned happiness. If their mom does this or that, you can still maintain your happiness. If your brothers and sisters or your boss does this or that, you can still maintain your happiness. If your bank account is here or it's here, you can still maintain your happiness. Whatever house or car you have, you can still maintain your happiness, right? That's what's called unconditioned happiness, where there doesn't need to be any condition met in order for the mind to experience happiness or joy. As long as you allow your mind to get conditional happiness, conditional pleasant feelings, the painful ones are waiting for you right around the corner. Because if you get really excited and happy because you got that brand new job, 5 years later, when the company goes out of business or you get laid off or fired, you'll be angry or sad or frustrated. Or you get so happy and excited with that brand new car, when it gets a scratch on it, you're going to be angry or frustrated. Right? So you need to be able to see that as long as you allow the mind to get conditional happiness, this temporary happiness, that the painful feelings are waiting for you right around the corner. So you can get to unconditional happiness, where you can maintain your happiness, your joy, no matter what. Okay, so this is called discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. These are conditioned feelings that the unenlightened mind is experiencing. Now, again, you don't believe this. Right? Don't believe what I'm sharing with you. Look at your own life, because you know your mind is unenlightened. Ask yourself, is this what you experience? Are there any feelings that you experience that aren't described using pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant? When we get to the question period, if you have a thought that you'd like to ask me a question about, let me know and I'll help you. Okay, so this is the second universal truth. Then there's the third universal truth, which is called non-self. I'll explain to you guys what this is, but first let me explain to you the problem that this is solving, because this is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. I kind of introduced you to this yesterday when we were talking about the 10 fetters. Remember, there's these 10 individual pollutions in the mind. They're referred to as fetters because during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were someone they were trying to keep in a certain area, like a prisoner, they would put a fetter around your ankle. This was a shackle and a chain and a ball, and they would keep you trapped in kind of in this field. This is where you would stay. You'd be confined to that area. Where today we put prisoners in jail cells or prison cells. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, they attached a fetter around your ankle. So when he discovered these 10 pollutions in the mind, he referred to them as fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state where it keeps experiencing anger and sadness and frustration, all these other discontent feelings over and over and over and over and over again. But just like a prisoner, when you release that fetter off the ankle, they're free, they're liberated. The same thing is true with your mind. When you get rid of these pollutions, these 10 fetters, your mind is free. It's no longer bound up. Now your mind is completely peaceful and joyful, experiencing the enlightened mental state. So the very first fetter is called personal existence view. This is where your mind has the misunderstanding or the confusion that this body is you or this mind is you. The mind clings to a self-image or a self-identity, thinking that this is who you are, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only be happy or having pleasant feelings when you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. But when you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived, then the mind's going to experience painful feelings. So for example, if you've ever went to a social situation and you spilt something on your clothing and you were embarrassed, this is your personal existence view. That's why you experienced that embarrassment, because you wanted to be perceived by others in a certain way. And now when your clothes are clean, you're happy about that because you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived, clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are. But then when you spill spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream on your clothing, you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived. And now the mind experiences painful feelings. The mind's clinging to this body, wanting it to be permanent, when in reality, it's not permanent. Or if you've ever looked in the mirror and you saw a pimple or a mole or a wrinkle or a gray hair or something like this, and you were shaken up by that, that's your personal existence view. The mind's clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And you can only be happy when you're being perceived that way. Or maybe you stood in front of your closet thinking about who you were going to see today and how you want to look. You might have thought about that special shirt or that special pair of pants that you really wanted to wear in order to impress those particular people. And maybe you were rifling through your clothes and putting on clothes and looking in the mirror. No, that's not how I want to look today. You put on some other clothes. No, that's not how I want to look today. And maybe the third set, you're like, all right, this is how I want to look today. And now you felt comfortable going outside because the mind felt like, this is how I want to be perceived today, right? Or if you were like me, when I was a child, I used to get gel and mousse, and I would run this through my hair before going to school, trying to get every little hair in exactly the right spot. And I didn't feel comfortable going outside until every little hair was in the right spot. And sometimes I would do this for so long, I'd miss the school bus on the way to school. Right? So this is personal existence view. This is the mind clinging to this body. It has confusion, thinking that this is who you are as a person. And now you can only feel comfortable when you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. But then there's a self-identity part of this, where inside the mind, you can cling to a certain identity of who you think you are. And now, once again, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, clinging to this. So about your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, or your job or occupation, any number of things your mind can cling to as an identity of who you think you are as a person. So if you've ever been in a relationship where maybe you thought, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, or I am a husband, I am a wife. And when you guys were together, there was a certain amount of comfort. But when you guys broke up, you might have been uncomfortable with that because your mind didn't identify with I am single. You might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship because the mind thinks that's the way to solve it. It doesn't understand that it has this personal existence view, this pollution, and the way to solve this uncomfortableness is to get rid of that pollution, a personal existence view. That's the way to solve it. But the mind doesn't have that wisdom in the unenlightened state, so it thinks the way to solve this uncomfortableness of I am single, and the mind doesn't identify that way, is to hurry up and get back into another relationship. Or say you've had a certain job or occupation. And now when you were doing that job, you felt great. Maybe I am a police officer. And that's how your mind identified. But now when you maybe get injured and you can't do that job anymore, or maybe you get fired, or maybe you retire, you feel like less of a person. Maybe you're driving a taxi cab and you're feeling disgruntled and angry and frustrated because the mind's identifying with I am a police officer. And now when you're driving that taxi cab, you don't identify that way. And now your mind's frustrated, irritated, or annoyed, right? Your mind can cling to any number of things of who you think you are as a person. Your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. You can cling to your wherever you were born. Maybe I am Chinese, or I am American, or I am German, or I am Icelandic, or I am Indian, or I am Canadian, or I am Mexican, I am Spanish. Any of this I am, right? And now when you're at a restaurant and two tables over, they're talking fondly about the place where you come from. You're like, yeah, they're talking about me. Yeah, they're talking about me. But now two tables over, they're talking in degrading and disparaging ways about the place where you come from. And your mind's holding on to this identity of who you think you are, and now you're angry or frustrated. So you can't get to permanent peace and permanent joy as long as you cling to this body, this self-image, or this mind, this self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. Because not everyone's going to perceive those things in the way that you want them to perceive them because of impermanence. Not everyone's going to see things in the same way as you. So as long as you cling to a self-identity or a self-image, you can't be permanently peaceful. So the Buddha teaches you the universal truth of non-self. This is the solution to help you to understand that this body is not you and this mind is not you. This self-image is going to be constantly changing. So if you cling to it, wanting it to be permanent, you're just sabotaging your ability to be peaceful and joyful. Or this self-identity that your mind has that doesn't define who you are as a person. So as long as you cling to it, now you're going to be upset or frustrated, irritated in any particular situation. So the Buddha shares that there is no you there, right? There is no self, right? Now, we've spent a lot of time in our life accumulating the understanding that we think there is a self here. We've got national anthems, we've got flags, we've got sports teams where you might be cheering like, I am American, so I'm going to cheer for the American team. Yay, 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 yay. No, I am not American. This body was born on a land that is referred to as America, but the mind doesn't have to adopt the identity of I am American. Same thing, I'm sitting here sharing the teachings of the Buddha, and someone might say, he is a Buddhist teacher. Or someone might say, I am a Buddhist teacher. No, I am not a Buddhist teacher. I'm choosing to share the teachings of the Buddha, but the mind doesn't have to adopt the identity of I am a Buddhist teacher. Because as soon as you say, I am this, well, now when somebody says something fondly, all Buddhist teachers are so kind and friendly and warm and gentle. They're so generous with their time. Wow, I am a Buddhist teacher. They're talking about me. But it's only a matter of time before somebody says something degrading and disparaging about Buddhist teachers. And now if you identify that way, you'll be angry or frustrated. So you need to get to the point where you realize non-self. This is called realizing non-self, where you strip all of this away and you don't cling to any of it, wanting it to be permanent, wanting other people to perceive you in a certain way. Sometimes people have this so bad that they might go to their family in their home country and they'll say, Mom, Dad, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find myself. I need to go find my true self. And they might even come to a place like Thailand to find themselves. Right? They might be here looking around, trying to find themselves. Maybe some of you are doing that, right? You won't find yourself here because it doesn't exist, right? You might find new friends, new hobbies, new activities, a new job, something like this. But as soon as you cling to any of that, thinking that that's who you are, you'll go back to your home country and be like, yay, Mom and Dad, I found myself. I know who I am again. But then when all that stuff changes, you're going to be right back in the same situation that you don't know who you are anymore because your job's changed, your friends changed, your hobbies changed, and now the mind is lost and confused, feeling like less of a person. So there's a solution here to realize non-self, where you realize none of these things are you. It doesn't define who you are. Of course, you're going to make wise decisions to take care of this body. You're going to make wise decisions to move your life forward and do and accomplish things that you would like to accomplish, but you're not interested in clinging to any of that and identifying with that as who you are as a person. Okay, so this is a little bit of the intellectual learning on the universal truth of non-self. Now, some people understand this when I first start talking about it, but some people don't. And if that's the category that you're in, it's okay that there's time for you to continue to learn and understand this universal truth. I've had some students can take upwards of a year just to understand what I'm describing here. So there's other situations where I might spend an entire class period just talking about this for an hour, hour and a half. But let me help you to be able to see how you can independently verify that there is no self. Even at this point, even if you don't understand what I've been sharing, you can still independently verify that there is no self. Okay, think about yourself when you were a child, teenager, early adulthood, and then now, right? Think about yourself, your character, your personality, things like this. Has it been exactly the same during all those phases of your life, or have you viewed yourself differently in all these 4 phases? What would you say? Have you viewed yourself differently in your early life, your teenage years, your early adulthood, and now? Has it been constantly changing? Okay, let me help you some more. Okay, if your arm was amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? No, you're not less of a person. Okay, so you can see that this body is not you, because otherwise you would answer that question differently. If your arm's amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, if this body is you, you would say, yes, I'm less of a person because I have less body. So therefore there's less of a person. But that's not how people typically answer that question. They usually say, no, I'm not less of a person. This is where you can understand something intellectually. Intellectually, you can understand that this body is not you through that question that I just asked you. But in the heat of the moment, that's where the mind's confusion comes in. That's where that pollution of personal existence view comes in. That in the heat of the moment, when someone says, wow, you look so beautiful, that shirt really brings out the colors of your eyes. You're like, wow, they're talking about me, because they're talking about this body, and this body is me. That's the confusion that the mind has. But now when somebody says, oh my gosh, where did you get that haircut? Are you serious? Did you pay for that? Right? Now you're like, you're angry and frustrated. So intellectually, somebody can understand this body is not you, because if your arm was amputated, you say, no, I'm not less of a person. But in the heat of the moment, the mind's confusion or misunderstanding or lack of wisdom kicks in, where now you're angry or frustrated or happy when somebody's commenting about this body. Here's another way. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point to yourself? People are pointing here. That's a common place that people point to. Sometimes people point here, right? You need to look at what you're pointing to. If you point here and you say, I am here, right? You're pointing to a shirt. That's what you're pointing to. So if you took off your shirt and you held it up, is that you? Is that who you are, that shirt you're wearing? That's not you, right? So, okay, let's throw away the shirt. Where are you? And someone might point again, right? And now what you're pointing to is skin. So ask yourself, is that who you are? That skin that you've got? Is that you? Right? If we took off the skin and we held it up, is that you? That's not you. Okay, throw that away. Where are you? Someone might point again. Well, now you're pointing at bones, muscle tissue, organs, fluid. That's what's in there. Right? None of those bits and pieces and parts are you, but the mind's going to cling to this, thinking that this is who you are. And now the mind's going to form feelings about it. Even decisions that people make. Like, let's just say you used drugs and alcohol in the past. You might think, I am an alcoholic, or I am an addict. And now there's certain maybe guilt or shame in your mind because of that. That doesn't define who you are. You might have made choices in the past to use drugs and alcohol, but that doesn't define who you are as a person. Those are just choices and decisions that you made, but that doesn't define who you are. But our mind adopts this identity because all through our life, we've been taught to do this ever since birth. We were all given labels. I don't know all your labels, but my label was David, right? We've been given these labels, and now we assign certain personality and character to this, and we think this is who we are. So this is why it's hard for the mind when they're first learning about this to really understand it, because we've spent so much time accumulating this personal existence view, thinking that this is who we are. So to strip it away, it's not going to be just one conversation, and you're going to ultimately strip it away. You need time to really soak this in and be able to see how none of this is actually you. And that's where you can actually get to peace and joy, when you realize that this is not you. Because you can only be happy as long as you think this is you. You can only be happy when you're being perceived the way that you want to be perceived. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and see what questions you guys have on any of these three. Remember, if you guys could use the microphones here and online, if you guys could put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, then I'll be able to answer your question. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions that you like. So does anybody have questions here? Anything you'd like to ask, or anyone online? Yeah. You can do some beatboxing.
No? Yes. Hi. And talking through this, more than being a question, is a situation that I was going through this year, where I felt how I was treated dependent on the label that people were giving me according to the... No? So I was in a moment kind of, I don't want to say like really what I am doing, staying, because I felt treated different.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, but no, it's felt kind of uncomfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt even then they had kind of expectations towards me.
Mm-hmm.
Like even expecting like, oh, so kind of you are these and beautiful things, but even that was like, no, I am like a human, and in that way of kind of beautiful things that they were giving me. And in a moment even I thought like, I don't want to even like being with people around in the place where I was in that moment. I felt kind of also sad. And I don't know, I just wanted to share it because I remember this when we were going through this. I don't know if there could be a question, maybe how to go through when I feel that the others are giving me or putting me in a position that I don't feel that I am.
So I'm going to teach some more, because when we get to the Four Noble Truths, you'll understand why your mind was doing that. But you need to understand the Four Noble Truths. And then at that point, let's talk some more, and I'll help you to slice through this so you can see what was going on in the mind. Any questions on this?
It's not.
Yeah. The batteries need to be changed from time to time.
I still feel confusion. So I still cannot get rid of I, non-self. I still cannot get rid of the conception of I. So how to define this, that now in the whole, this creature, I so say non-self, so I say this creature, how to define this? Obviously we're different. So still the question, who am I? So still use the I. I don't know, I should say non-self is no I. So who is it?
So this is the mind still grasping and clinging to try to hold on to something of who you think you are, right? When I start sharing with people that this body is not you, this mind is not you, well, people say, well, if I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, then who am I? That's the mind still grasping. and trying to cling on to something. It's trying to grab something that it can say, this is who I am. But as soon as your mind does that, then when that thing changes, your mind's going to experience painful feelings because it's not permanent.
Then there also no real self. The whole self is gone.
There is a physical body, there is a mind, and it's come together for this existence. And we call this a human being, or we call this a person, but this isn't you. You need to get to the point where you're not clinging to this, wanting it to be permanent, because it's impermanent.
Okay, just
I think your mic went out.
the change.
Yeah, it's impermanent. It's completely impermanent. That's why as soon as you cling to anything and say, this is who I am, you're just sabotaging your ability to be happy because that thing isn't permanent. Your mic went out again. The people online can't hear you.
Right, is like shocked
It's
and
impermanent.
cannot.
The teachings of the Buddha apply even to modern technology. It's all impermanent.
Okay, I see.
So using the example of the microphone, right? If you were to cling to it, wanting it to work every single time, you would be angry and frustrated when it doesn't work. But if you understand impermanence, you understand like, yeah, okay, sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not. We need to change the batteries probably, and then it'll work, right? This is the impermanent nature of the world. But what the mind's going to do is it's going to crave permanence. You're going to see that in the Four Noble Truths. It craves permanence, wanting things to be permanent, when in reality you live in an impermanent world. Mm-hmm. So let me teach some more, and you'll see some more. Okay. Any other questions just about the three universal truths? Boulder, you have a question? Yeah. Okay.
The discontentedness, the pleasant, painful, and the neither painful. Having a little difficulty with the neither nor aspect of discontentedness, because some things are obviously painful, like physical pain, or like, just real sadness. But things like, some things are listed as painful, like frustration, irritation, sadness, and that loneliness and melancholy is listed sort of as a neutral. I'm having a how would you define a neither nor?
This is where there's displeasure in the mind, uncomfortableness, dissatisfaction in the mind. So the shyness is a good example of that. Or that example that I gave you where someone comes in and sits close to you and your body's touching their body. You're like, it's not pleasant. It's not painful. It's neither painful nor pleasant. It's unsatisfying.
Yeah, that's the thing I have to remember. Unsatisfying is, even though it's neither nor, it's still discontentedness. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And by the way, this here is, we're talking about mental pain. We're not talking about physical pain. That's not what we're talking about. It's all mental. There's a physical body that can experience pain, but then there's the mind. That's what we're talking about, is the mental pain. When we're talking about painful feelings, we're not talking about physical pain. We're talking about emotions and feelings.
I have in this case the discontentment that is related to, or in the Buddhist perspective, it's mind, not emotions.
Same thing. Emotions and feelings are the same thing.
Okay.
Okay. So now let's move on. Okay, this is another building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. Then we can dive into the Four Noble Truths. You need to know the definition of craving, desire, attachment, wants, expectations, grasping, holding, clinging. This is the mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection, pulling towards the objects of its affection, thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it. It's like an unquenchable thirst that the mind has, thinking something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind pulls in the direction of this particular thing. It's kind of like the mind thinks, oh, what do I need to feel better here? Oh, a boyfriend or girlfriend, that'll fix everything. Let me get one of those. And now the mind will chase that. Or, oh, I know what I need, more money. That's what'll do it. Let me chase that for a while. Or, oh, a bigger house, that'll fix everything. Let me get one of those. It's not the object itself that is the craving, desire, attachment. It's the way that the mind longs and yearns for it. So if you've ever been in the mall and you were walking through the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes in the window and you were like, oh, brand new pair of shoes. I just can't wait to get those. Oh, I want to get those on my feet. That's the longing, yearning, right? Or maybe it was a video game or a new phone or something like this. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Have you observed this in your mind where you're longing and yearning for something? Almost like an unquenchable thirst, just thinking the next new thing is going to provide lasting satisfaction. Oh, I know what I need to feel better. Let me go to Thailand. That'll fix everything, right? Let me just go to Thailand. That'll do everything. That'll fix everything, right? So the mind just longs and yearns for the next new shiny object. Okay, so that's what craving, desire, attachment is. Okay, so now we can move to the Four Noble Truths. We can understand in 4 simple statements what is the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And remember, you need to independently verify this. This is where you can have a real breakthrough to understanding what's causing these feelings. Because I suspect if you haven't studied this before, you might be walking around believing that it's other people who are causing you to be angry and frustrated and sad. But you can see through the Four Noble Truths that it's your own mind that's causing this. That's why you can actually eliminate it. So you can have a breakthrough here today, where the first Noble Truth is explaining the problem. Everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. This is the problem that you're experiencing, is that the mind has conditioned feelings, that there's some condition that has to be met, and then you'll be happy. And then the mind's going to be sad or frustrated, some painful feeling. And then there's the neither painful nor pleasant feelings like shyness or uncomfortableness. So the mind is going up and down and up and down and up and down. You'll have peace and calmness here and there, but it's only a matter of time before you get irritated or frustrated about something. That's the problem that each unenlightened being is experiencing. The second Noble Truth is explaining the cause of this. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. Okay, so I'm going to say that a few times and I'm going to give you some examples so you can see this for yourself. The discontentedness, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant, is being caused by craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. The mind wants things to be permanent when you live in an impermanent world. Okay, so the mind is craving permanence. And if the mind gets its cravings fulfilled, you'll get pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, then there's going to be the painful feelings like the anger, sadness, frustration, and others. The mind's going up and down and up and down. It craves for things to be permanent when in reality you live in an impermanent world. So here's some examples. Think back to maybe that brand new boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with. When you guys first got together, you might have been so happy, so excited. This new person's in your life. They're showing you affection. They're calling you and checking in on you. They're sending you text messages. They're inviting you to dinner, to the movies. Maybe you're going to the park. You're having great conversations. Maybe you're even having intimate contact where you're having sex. So much pleasure. Right? But then over time, the relationship slowly deteriorates and now you guys break up. Now you might be angry or sad or frustrated. might be lonely or bored, or you might be missing this person. It's not your love that's causing this. It's the mind holding on and craving permanence. As long as you guys were together, the mind was getting what it wanted. So there's a certain level of comfort. But when the mind wasn't getting what it wanted, when you guys broke up, the mind was craving permanence. The mind didn't understand the universal truth of impermanence, that this relationship is impermanent. Ever since the very beginning of the relationship, it was going to end someday. More likely than not, even if you were together for the rest of your life, one of you would have died first. Right? The relationship was going to end, but the mind was craving permanence. You can see this with grandma and grandpa, or mom or dad, if you've had people close to you that have died, like brothers and sisters or something like that. If you were grieving and had sorrow at their death, you're not a bad person, of course. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just that the mind craves permanence, and the mind can only be happy when it gets what it wants. When this person is alive, the mind's getting what it wants. But then when they die, the mind's not getting what it wants. It's experiencing this impermanence. But the mind's craving permanence. It's craving for grandma and grandpa to be permanent, when in reality, they're not permanent. They were born, so therefore they have to die. Every single one of us have to die. But the mind's going to crave permanence in this situation. Or if you've ever been to a wedding and you've seen people crying and grieving, this is because the mind's craving permanence. Here's brother or sister, or here's someone's child going off into the world with somebody else. And the mind's like, that's my brother, that's my sister, that's my son, that's my daughter, right? The mind doesn't like this impermanence. It's confronted with the fact that this person is not permanent in your life. They're going off into the world with someone else, right? And now the mind's holding on, and people are grieving at a wedding. Or if you can think back to when you got dropped off at school, maybe as a child, or maybe you got dropped off at university, your parents might have been crying, or you might have been crying. This is once again the mind craving permanence. Because if you're taking your kid to preschool or to kindergarten, if it's love, you'd be like, oh, this is wonderful. They're going to get an education. This is great. Send them off into the world. Let them go get an education. Because love is a genuine interest in seeing this being be well. But no, there's crying and grieving when you send your kids off to school if your mind is having craving, desire, attachment, craving permanence. So now the parents and the child might be crying and upset because their mind's holding on and craving permanence. It's not the love that's causing that. It's the mind craving permanence. I'll give you an example that doesn't involve relationships. You might be able to see it a bit easier this way. If you bought a brand new car and you were so excited about this brand new car and you took it and you drove it and you parked it at a store and you went inside and you came out and there was a scratch on your car, you would be frustrated or angry. It's not the scratch that's causing the anger or frustration. And it's not the person who scratched your car. That's not what's causing the anger and frustration. What's causing the anger and frustration is the mind's craving permanence, wanting this car to look permanently beautiful, when it's not possible for this car to look permanently beautiful. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. And if your mind's craving permanence, when you're confronted with this impermanence, the mind doesn't like that. And it's going to experience the painful feelings. So one of the ways to say this is that the mind craves permanence. That's what we're saying here. But another way to say this is the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. By the way, would you mind turning that microphone off? Because it's kind of echoing just a little bit. If you hit the lights, it's on. Yeah, the lights go out when you're not using it. Yeah. Okay. So the mind craves permanence. Another way to say this is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. This is where you can look at your life. Whenever you're experiencing change, these were the most challenging times in your life. You might have been changing living locations. You might have been changing jobs. You might have been changing relationships. This is really challenging for the unenlightened mind during times of change. So you need to be able to see this for yourself. So take a recent situation where you've been angry or frustrated or sad. Okay? It might have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Think about that situation At that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else, because that's what the mind typically does. When you get angry and frustrated, you'll try to blame somebody else for that anger. But look at the situation through this new wisdom, this new understanding. What was it that your mind was craving? What were you longing, yearning for? That if you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, the mind was angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. If you need help seeing this, let me know. There's been plenty of students over the years that needed help to see this. Because what I'm sharing with you here is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's not the outside world. As long as you blame other people for what you're experiencing, you'll never actually solve it. When people don't understand the second noble truth, what will tend to happen is you'll blame something external for the feelings that you're having, and now you will push those people away, or you'll try to push the situation away. This is called aversion, or you might have pushed away friends or family in your life, right? Or the second thing you'll do when you don't understand the second noble truth is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile with people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, right? You might be like growling and roaring, trying to fear this other person into doing things your way. Or the third thing you'll do is you'll put your expectations on people and try to control them or force them or pressure them into doing things your way. This is the mind trying to get its cravings fulfilled, because the mind has a certain craving, a certain longing, a certain yearning. It's wanting this permanence. And this person coming into your life represents impermanence, and you don't like what they're doing, and now you push them away out of your life, trying to create this permanence. Or you'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile to this person, trying to fear them into doing things your way. Or you'll put your expectations on them and try to control them and force them to do things your way. This is what the unenlightened mind does. It's unskillful because it doesn't understand the second noble truth, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. So you need to be able to see it for yourself. I could give you many examples that I could share with you. Here, let me just give you one. Okay, think back to when you were a child. Do you remember when you went to your parents and you were like, Mommy, Daddy, can I have some chocolate and ice cream? And they're like, sure, here you go. Here's some chocolate and ice cream. You're like, thank you so much. You're the best mommy and daddy ever. Right? And they're like, oh, okay, enjoy your chocolate and ice cream. And then the next day you're like, Mommy, Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? Yeah, sure, here you go. Here's your chocolate and ice cream. Ah, you're the best mommy and daddy ever. Right? But then on the third day, you were like, Mommy, Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? They're like, nope, you can't have it. You're the worst mommy and daddy ever. Right? This is the mind being angry and frustrated because you're not getting what you want. The mind thought that this chocolate and ice cream is permanent. If you could get ice cream every single day as a child, oh, that was a good day. Whenever you got chocolate and ice cream, but it wasn't permanent. Not every day is going to have chocolate and ice cream, right? But that's what the mind was craving. That's what it was wanting. And it could only be happy when it got what it wanted. And when it wasn't getting what it wanted, that's when the anger and frustration came in. So there's many examples. You can look over the course of your life. Now, surely there might have been people that are doing things unwise around you, right? Like if that person scratched the car, especially if they did it intentionally, that's unwise to do that, right? That's why when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car, right? But the fact is that this car is going to get a scratch. It's only a matter of time, right? It's not possible for it to be permanently beautiful. It's just not possible. So you need to be able to peer into this and look at every single time you've ever been angry and frustrated, irritated, or annoyed, or any of those discontent feelings, it was the mind causing it all along. Now, I know you've probably been in knockdown, drag-out fights with people, trying to convince them that what they are doing is making you angry, and they have to stop doing what they're doing, or else you're going to continue to get angry. But this is the mind craving permanence, trying to put expectations on others and convince them to do things your way. So if you can see through this, you can have a breakthrough to being able to see that it's your own mind causing these feelings. And this is very empowering. Because once you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, then you understand that you can solve this. Because if it was everybody else who was causing you to experience these feelings, you'd never be able to eliminate them. It would be impossible. Because you can't train 8 billion people to do things your way. It's just not possible. But the fact that it is your own mind that's causing these feelings, that means you can eliminate them. That's how the Buddha was able to do it, because it was his own mind that was causing it. He didn't go around trying to change the world. He wasn't changing the people around him. He changed his own mind. He changed his inner world. Instead of changing the outer world, he changed the inner world, right? So once you understand it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, then you can move into the third noble truth, which helps you understand that you can eliminate discontentedness by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you understand the cause of these feelings is craving, desire, attachment, well, if you eliminate the cause, you'll eliminate the effect. Just eliminate the cause of what's causing this whole thing to occur, and then you eliminate the discontentedness. So the third noble truth is helping you to see that if you eliminate your craving for permanence, then you'll eliminate your discontentedness. And you know this to be true too. You can independently verify it. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you were angry and frustrated with, that you were lonely and bored and missing them. When you guys first broke up, that's how you felt. But at some point, your mind let go. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with somebody else, so be it. And you let go. Or if she wants to move to another part of the world, so be it. And your mind let go. And when you let go, that's when your peace and your joy came back, because you weren't craving permanence any longer, because your mind wasn't getting what it wanted. It was craving this person to be in your life, and they weren't in your life. And that's why you were angry or frustrated or lonely or missing them or bored or something like that. But when your mind let go, that's where you were able to regain your peace and joy. So you can independently verify this third noble truth as well. So the Buddha is explaining to you, you can eliminate discontentedness by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. That's the solution. But the way to accomplish that is in the fourth noble truth. The way to eliminate all your longing, yearning, and your chasing after the objects of your affection is the Eightfold Path. That's the complete perfect plan that's going to eliminate it. Now, sometimes when people hear me talk about eliminating craving, desire, attachment, they think, well, wouldn't my mind swing all the way over here to the other side where I feel dull and lethargic and bored? Well, it could, but that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. The Buddha is teaching you to come to the middle, where you can gradually pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest. This longing, yearning, and chasing, the unenlightened mind can usually see that very clearly. And you can usually see this other side very clearly too. The dullness, the laziness, the boredom, the lethargic condition. Usually you can see these two sides very clear. But there's this middle way that the Buddha taught, where you can gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests with ambition, with motivation, with enthusiasm, through wise decision making, not through craving and longing, yearning, and chasing. Right? So you need to be able to learn how to come to the middle and pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest without chasing, informing your inner feelings on whether you accomplish that or not. And that's what the Eightfold Path is going to do for you. The Eightfold Path is the complete perfect plan that's helping you to understand how to train your mind. It starts with right view. It's the foundation of the entire path. That's why it's on the bottom, because it's the foundation. So what right view is to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's craving, desire, attachment, that's longing, yearning, that's what's causing these discontent feelings. That is right view. What wrong view would be to blame everybody else, that it's everybody else that you're experiencing these feelings because of them. Well, if it's everybody else that's causing you to experience these feelings, they should be here at the temple. You're perfect. Go home, right? Go home and be perfect. Everybody else is the problem, right? That's the way that the mind typically thinks because of its ego, right? The mind's ego is like, I'm right, everybody else is wrong, right? That's not true, right? It's not about what's right or wrong. It's just about what's going on in the unenlightened mind. So establishing right view is to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's the cravings, desires, attachments. And when you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, then the rest of the path makes sense, because now you understand, I have some work to do. I need to train this mind, right? But if it's everybody else, if you continue to think it was everybody else that was causing these feelings, there's nothing for you to do. Go home. You're perfect, right? But when you understand right view, you understand, oh, okay, I need to work on this mind. The last thing that I'm interested in doing is continuing to experience these feelings over and over and over again and damaging my relationships. So let me just pause here and see if you guys have any questions on the Four Noble Truths before I go further into the Eightfold Path. Any questions here? Anybody need help independently verifying that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings? If you can't see it, let me know. I will help you.
Okay, you talk about training the mind. I'm thinking back to the non-self and training myself also alongside everything to be sort of shedding myself in a sense, you know. So when I'm sort of going through, breaking down how I'm feeling, I'm working on this, I'm more mindful of it. Would it be helpful to use the words, the thoughts, not me, like I am craving this or I want this, but to start saying to myself, the mind wants this, rather than use the word I too much? Like when I'm thinking to myself, what's going on? Why am I feeling shitty? This is the mind, rather than me.
Yeah, that's part of the training that you employ in order to eliminate personal existence view and realize non-self, is you start changing the way that you think and the way that you talk a little bit. So instead of saying, I am hungry, you start to understand there's no I here. What really is truly occurring is the body needs food. That's truly what it is, right? Or instead of I am angry, you might think the mind is experiencing anger. So there's no I here. So it's not that I am training myself. That's not what you're doing. There's a body, there's a mind. The combination of these two things we call the person, right? Some people call it the observer. The person is training the mind, right? That's what's really occurring. So it's not I am enlightened. It's the mind is experiencing enlightenment. That's what's really happening. So what you're doing is you're purifying the mind, and it's the person that's choosing to do that work. So disassociating with all of this I will actually help you to realize non-self. But there's other things too. That's why I teach it as a standalone class, just how to do that. But in a foundational program like this, just kind of introducing you to it. Mm-hmm.
My question is related more to a word maybe that in English I am curious about. Would you say that craving, desires, and attachments are the same as expectations?
Yes, that's what you saw back here is expectations. So that example that you were giving where those people were putting expectations on you, but you were also putting expectations on them because you expected them to treat you a certain way. And when they didn't treat you that way, that's why you felt uncomfortable. Because the mind thinks this is what I want. This is how I want people to treat me. And when they don't treat me that way, then the mind experiences the anger and frustration or uncomfortableness because the mind's craving permanence. And you need to be able to understand that not everybody's going to treat you that way. That would be permanence. Some people are going to treat you this way. Some people are going to treat you this way. Some people are going to treat you this way. Some people are going to treat you this way. And you need to be able to train your mind to understand this is all impermanence. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily associate with that, right? If someone was being abusive to you physically or otherwise, right? It doesn't mean you stay in the relationship. It's just that you understand that not everybody's going to treat you in the way that you want them to treat you. That's the longing, the yearning. So expectation is the same thing as a craving, desire, attachment. It's the mind longing, yearning, wanting or expecting something. And because the world is not permanent, you can't always get things that way. And as soon as you allow your mind to adopt an expectation, then when something is opposite of that, you're going to experience discontentedness. This is how the mind sabotages its ability to be permanently peaceful. So you need to be able to learn how to come to the middle where you pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest, but you don't form your feelings based on that. So in the unenlightened state, someone will say, I have a goal. I want to get this college degree, or I want to get this bigger salary. And they'll call it a goal. And now they'll chase after it. And if they get it, they'll be happy. And if they don't get it, they'll be sad or frustrated. That's not actually a goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment, masquerading as a goal. A true goal is from the middle, where you can work towards something through wise decision making. And whether you obtain it or not, you can maintain your happiness, you can maintain your joy. So if somebody's 80% of their way towards their goal, you can look at it and be like, I haven't met this goal. But you can maintain your contentedness. And now you can make wise decisions. And you can say, well, I can extend my timeline. I can give myself more time. I was planning to get this degree in 4 years, but you know what? 5 or 6 years is fine too. I can get this degree in 5 or 6 years. That's fine. And now you can maintain your happiness or joy. Or you can say, you know what? Maybe I'll put more resources towards it. I was planning to graduate in 4 years and I'm at the 3-year mark, but maybe if I took a couple more classes and I spend a little bit more money during the winter session, maybe I can actually meet my goal of graduating in 4 years. Maybe I can do this if I apply more resources, right? That's another option. Or for some people, they might look at the goal and say, you know what, 80% of the goal, that's fine. I don't need to go any further. I've learned what I need to learn. I don't need that shiny degree. I'm already working. I already got a job. I'm already, doing the things that I would like to do. I opened my own business, right? I had some friends that dropped out of college because they opened their own business before even graduating, and they were already doing really well, right? So you can look at a goal and you can say, hey, 80% is just fine for me. I've learned what I need to learn. I'm just going to step away from this and not go forward. That's possibility too, right? But if you have a craving, desire, attachment, or an expectation, you can only be happy when you get what you want. And now you can't get what you want every single time. So you're sabotaging your ability to be happy. So you need to be able to come to the middle where you can pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest, and you're not forming your feelings based on whether you acquire that thing or not. Okay, let me see if we have any questions online here. All right, I don't see any questions. Okay, so now let's go into the next one, which is right intention, because we were just talking about right view. Each one of these don't take the same amount of time to teach. The first one, I really need to take my time to teach it to you, but let's learn right intention. So here's the words of the Buddha. In what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. Right? So there's 3 things here that the Buddha is talking about: renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. What renunciation is where you have the willingness to let go and give up your false ideas, your false belief, your false opinions and views, and your unwholesomeness. There's a certain amount of unwholesome moral conduct that each unenlightened being has, and they need to be willing to let that go. So there's certain false ideas, false beliefs, opinions, views that you're going to need to be willing to let go of. Because if you continue to hold on to those things, you're never cultivating wisdom. You need to bring in wisdom so that you can now cultivate true reality and understand how the world truly functions. One of the first false beliefs, false opinions, false views that you need to be willing to let go of and renunciate is the belief that other people are making you angry. You need to let that go. If you're not willing to let that go, then you'll never get to enlightenment, right? Because remember, the Buddha is laying out a path for you of how to get to enlightenment. So if you currently experience anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, there's certain false beliefs, opinions, and views that you have in your mind. Right? And you need to be willing to let those go. If you don't let those go, you'll never cultivate the wisdom that you need in order to be able to train your mind to get to enlightenment. So as long as you hold on to this false belief, you'll never actually cultivate wisdom. But you're not bringing in new beliefs in order to replace your old beliefs. That's not what you're doing. You're bringing in wisdom. And when you see this wisdom that you're bringing in conflicts with what it is that you've believed your whole life, you let that go. That's what the intention of renunciation is. It's the intention or the thinking or the thought that I'm willing to let this stuff go, that you understand it's not serving you well. It's not helping you to continue to hold on to these false opinions, false views, and false beliefs. And the same thing with your unwholesome moral conduct. Sometimes we feel that we're justified in the moral conduct. When you believe that it's other people who are causing you to be angry, You might feel like you're justified in being angry. You went to the airport, your flight was delayed, you yelled and hollered at the ticket counter. You might feel like they deserve it. No, it's just impermanence. Not every flight can take off on time. It's not possible, right? So as long as you hold on to this unwholesomeness, this unwise moral conduct, you're going to continue to be causing harm in the world. So you need to have the intention, the thinking, the thought to let go. Having an open mind, bringing in wisdom, and letting go of the things that you're currently holding on to. Then there's the intention of non-ill will. What this is this is a double negative. So whenever you see in English that there's a double negative, this means a positive. So you need to have the intention, the thinking, or the thought of goodwill. Goodwill towards all beings, where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. This is loving kindness, right? Then you need the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Because as long as you're putting out harm is just going to come back to you. So you need to have the thinking or the thought or the intention of not causing harm to other beings. Because as long as you keep putting out harm, it's going to keep coming back to you. And how can you get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if you keep having all this harm coming back to you over and over and over again? Right? So you need to be willing to eliminate your unwholesomeness, right? That you're going to be willing to cultivate this goodwill or this loving kindness. What ill will is animosity, bitterness, anger, hatred, and all those lesser versions. You need to get to the point where you have the intention of non-ill will. Sometimes people think that when you dislike somebody, they think it's coming from that other person. It's actually coming from your own mind. When you have people that meet your expectations, when people do things your way, you'll like them. But when they don't do things your way, when they don't meet your expectations, you'll dislike them. Because the mind's craving permanence. And it says, whenever people do things this way, I like them. But when they don't do things that way, you'll dislike them. That's the mind causing that itself. So that's the ill will towards this other being because they're not doing things your way. You would like to get to the point where you have intention or thinking or thought of having goodwill towards everybody, understanding that everybody's different, and that's okay. That's just impermanence. And then you have the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. So just a little summary, and then I'll see if you guys have any questions. Right view is the Four Noble Truths, understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these discontent feelings. And you need to accept responsibility and accountability for your own feelings. As long as you blame other people for the feelings that you're having, you'll never be able to eliminate it because you can't change other people. There's 8 billion people in the world. You can't change them, but you can change your own mind. And you'll find that to be challenging enough. So you need to accept responsibility and accountability for your own feelings, your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Then right intention is having the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go and give up your false ideas, false belief, false opinions and views, and your unwholesomeness. And you have the intention or the thinking or the thought of non-ill will or goodwill towards all beings, loving kindness towards all beings. And you have the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. So do you guys have any questions on this wisdom section of the Eightfold Path? Oops. How did that happen? There we go. So we just talked about this wisdom section.
So because I am responsible for my feelings, actions, and intentions, technically in the Buddhist view, there is no concept of compatibility then. I mean, the word compatibility technically has no meaning in that sense, because we commonly use that word in English, right? Especially in the concept of the context of relationships between husband and wife, or boyfriend and girlfriend, is that are we compatible? But technically, if I am taking full responsibility for my actions and my intentions and my views, then we are eliminating the concept of compatibility.
Yeah. So, well, you could think of it that way. I've never thought of that, but yeah, you could think of it that way, because by the time you get to enlightenment, you can live harmoniously with anybody and everybody, that there isn't anybody that you dislike by the time you get to enlightenment, because you've eliminated all these cravings, desires, attachments, and you understand that everybody's different, right? People are going to function differently in the world, and that's okay, right? Some people are going to sit here like this. Some people are going to lay down in the classroom. Some people are going to fall asleep. Some people are going to be on their phones, right? That's the way the world is. Everybody does things differently. But if you have craving for people to do things one particular way, you'll only like those people. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be able to like everybody. You'll be able to love everybody, having a genuine interest in seeing everyone be well. But by the time, if you're going to have like a life partner, for example, at that point in time, when you're looking for a life partner, you're not enlightened at that point. You don't get to enlightenment and then find a life partner. That's not the way it works. If you're going to be out there looking for a life partner, you're going to be unenlightened, which means you're going to have cravings, desires, attachments. So you're going to be looking for a certain physical appearance, maybe a certain financial background, certain intellect, certain intelligence, certain opinions and views that you're looking for this person to have. But you're not going to agree with everything that they have, right? Because that's not possible for you guys to be completely 100% of a match in every single category. It's not possible. And even if you did, because of impermanence, you guys are both going to change. And now 5 years later, you're two completely different people. So that's why if you understand that the goal isn't to crave permanence, when this partner is changing, you'll understand that that's part of it and that's normal. And now you just understand that that's what's happening. So yeah, by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be able to live harmoniously with everyone. But in terms of what people are talking about with life partners, they're looking for compatibility because this person has cravings, this person has cravings. Can we actually live together at least to some level of harmony? But there is going to be disharmony in this relationship. That's what people think, that we're going to meet, we're going to fall in love, and then we're going to live happily ever after. It doesn't work that way. That's not the way it works. Right?
Yeah, no. I have a word that I wanted to ask maybe the meaning in the last, in the right intention.
Mm-hmm.
So was cultivate renounce, love and kindness, and harmony. It's also something that we cultivate.
So you getting to harmony is you getting rid of your cravings, desires, attachments. So using this example of life partners, when me and my wife met, we had a certain amount of compatibility, right? But of course we argued and we fought, when we were first getting together, but not anymore because we've trained our mind, right? So we've been together 18, 19 years now. So for the first 11 years, we had difficulties and trouble because we hadn't trained our mind. Now we don't ever fight. We don't argue. We're not upset with each other. We're not frustrated or angry because we're not trying to convince each other and force each other to do things where before we were, right? So this harmony that you're looking to cultivate, you'll do that through eliminating your own cravings, desires, attachments. As long as I wanted my wife to be this way and she was this way, I would be angry and frustrated. But when I got rid of that and I realized that I can just love her as she is, not trying to change her, not trying to force her, not trying to control her to do things, now I can be harmonious with her all the time. I disagree with some of the things she does, but I just understand that she makes decisions differently than me. And that's okay. That's impermanence. Where I do things one way, she does things differently. And that's okay. That's just impermanence. Where before, when I didn't understand that, I kept trying to change her. I kept trying to get her to do things my way. And of course, it's not going to work, right? But when I got rid of all of that and I just understood, well, of course she does things differently than me because she's had different experiences in life than me. So she does things differently, and that's okay. And now I just love her as she is. And that's where the harmony comes in. By you eliminating your cravings, now you can live harmoniously with everybody around you. So you don't have to cultivate it as an intention. But if you train your mind through the entire Eightfold Path, you will get to harmony where you can live harmoniously with all beings.
It's interesting, that point actually.
Mm-hmm.
But was in that slide was the word we just understood as harmony, harmlessness.
Harmlessness, yeah.
What is?
Oh, okay. I thought you said harmony. Did you say?
also no, but it's okay. It's
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Harmlessness means that you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others.
damage someone.
Yeah, so you can't cause someone discontentedness. Just like nobody can cause you discontentedness, you can't cause other people to be discontent either. So if someone's blaming you for their anger and frustration, you're not the one causing it. They're causing it themselves, right? But you can cause someone harm. Causing someone harm is to cause harm to their material possessions, to their physical body, or their reputation. And whenever you're causing harm to someone's physical body, to their material possessions, or their reputation, because they're unenlightened, they're going to experience painful feelings, and now they're going to want to harm you too, right? So as long as you're causing harm, that harm is going to come back to you. So the Buddha teaches you not to cause harm. And now what we're going to do on the rest of this Eightfold Path is I'm going to teach you how to not cause harm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So what we usually do at this point is take a nice little break. It's 11 o'clock. Let's take a, say, 20-minute break until 11:20. And then when we come back, I'm going to teach you the moral conduct section, the mental discipline section, and you guys will be able to understand the path to enlightenment fully. So enjoy your break, and I'll see you guys in about 20 minutes. Okay? Okay. You have another question? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get restarted since it's 11:20. The folks that aren't here, they'll be able to come back in if they like. So we're going to keep on going here because we've set up this wisdom section to be able to understand right view, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, the craving, desire, attachment. And what I suggest that you do from this point forward in your life is that whenever you're discontent, whenever you're frustrated or any other discontent feeling, instead of looking external to blame other people for that, look inward. Try to figure out, what am I craving? What am I longing, yearning for here? Because if you can just train your mind to let that go, you'll actually experience peace and joy. So what we tend to do is we tend to look at other people. We try to blame other people, or we try to blame the circumstances that we're experiencing. Instead, if you start looking inward and trying to uncover what your mind's craving, then you can let that go. And that's where the peace and joy will come in. Right? So from now, for the rest of your life, whenever you're experiencing discontentedness, just look inward and try to figure out, what is your mind longing, yearning for? And that's where you can let that go. And that's where the peace and joy will come in. And then, of course, you learn the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. This wisdom section sets you up to understand that, hey, it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and you've got some work to do. Right? And now you start looking at right speech, right action, and right livelihood. This is your moral conduct. Because until you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, you'll feel justified in your moral conduct to a certain degree. Right? That going around being bitter and harsh and hostile to people, you'd be like, she deserved it or he deserved it. Right? But you realize, oh my goodness, my mind's causing this itself. Right? And being bitter and harsh and hostile to people are just damaging your relationships. So the Buddha is going to share with you wise moral conduct. We call this right speech, right action, and right livelihood, but you might think about this as wise speech or wise actions or wise livelihood, because what he's teaching you is the natural law of karma, this cause and effect or action and result. Some people call this karma. You might have heard that. That's from the Sanskrit language. The Pali language uses the word karma. If this translated to just one English word, I would just use it because it'd be easier for everyone, but it doesn't translate to just one English word. So I still need to use this. What it means is cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. Whenever you make decisions wisely, you will experience wholesome karma, or wholesome results. And whenever you make decisions unwisely, you will experience unwholesome karma, or unwholesome results. It's your life, it's your decisions, and it's your results. Whatever you experience in life is coming from decisions that you're making. Again, what we tend to do is we tend to blame other people for the decisions that we're making and the things that we're experiencing. But you need to be able to see that it's your own decisions that are leading to any results that you're experiencing. So, for example, ask yourself these questions. Who chose where you sit right now? Who chose the clothing that you're wearing? Who chose the hairstyle that you have? Who chose whether or not you ate breakfast this morning? Who chose the place where you live? Who chose where you work? Who chose your friends that you spend time with? Right? So you're getting the message here that it's you that's making all these choices, right? But when you don't have the wisdom of the natural law of karma, you will tend to make unwise choices about the way you interact in the world. And then when you're experiencing that unwholesome results coming back to you, what the mind tends to do is it blames it on good luck or bad luck. Or it might say it's destiny or fate. Or some people say it's God or some entity called the universe that's making me experience this. Or then some people will blame others. Right? Because whenever you're experiencing unwholesome results coming back to you, the last thing the unenlightened mind's interested in doing is accepting responsibility for that. Right? It wants to look for anybody and anything to blame. It's good luck, it's bad luck, it's destiny or fate, it's God or some entity called the universe, or it's other people that are causing me to experience this. It doesn't want to admit that what it's struggling and having difficulties with is within its own mind. That's the last thing the mind wants to admit to itself. And that's why this wisdom section is so important, to build the wisdom that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. But next, you need to build wisdom of the moral conduct that's going to help you to now transform the way you interact in the world. So when you see the Buddha teaching moral conduct, he's not giving you rules. He's not giving you commandments. He's helping you to understand this natural law of cause and effect. that when you make decisions wisely about your speech, your actions, and your livelihood, it's going to produce wholesome results. And when you make decisions unwisely, it's going to produce unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. So now you can learn right speech, right action, and right livelihood of what would be wise in the way to interact with people, so that now you can experience harmonious relationships with everybody around you. So here, this is the words of the Buddha on speech. He says, "In what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech." So remember, what the Eightfold Path is designed to do is help you eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, because it's craving, desire, attachment that is causing your discontentedness. Each one of these types of speech is based in craving, desire, attachment. So if you eliminate this type of speech, you eliminate your craving, desires, attachments. So lying, for example, we can understand that this is unwise. We've all lied, every single one of us. Growing up as a child, we all lied, right? Because we didn't have the wisdom. We didn't understand that that was unwise. But when we lied, it caused difficulties for us. We experienced unwholesome karma or unwholesome results because people found out about our lies, and then they considered us to be untrustworthy or undependable. And now people had difficulties interacting with us, right? And if you did a lot of lying, you know that your mind was obsessively trying to figure out what you said to one person versus another versus another. And how can you ever get to peace and joy if your mind's constantly having to do that, right? Lying is based in craving, desire, attachment. There's something the mind is longing, yearning for. It wants something. And it feels like if it tells the truth, it's not going to get what it wants. So it lies. Right? But then people discover those lies. So you're going to need to be truthful and trustworthy and reliable and dependable. This is how you're going to build your relationships. So by eliminating lying, you'll eliminate a certain amount of your cravings, desires, attachments, but it'll also help you to improve your relationships because people will see you as being trustworthy and dependable. Because whenever you say something, it's the truth. Then there's slander. What slander is like gossip, where you're trying to degrade or diminish other people. And the mind here has a craving to look good. And the mind thinks the way to do this is to make everybody else look bad, right? If I degrade and diminish other people through gossip and slander, then I will look good, right? But that actually is just the opposite. When you're slandering and gossiping people, it makes you look bad. What the unenlightened mind does is it's kind of like it goes into a dark room and everybody's got a candle. And the mind's like, I'm going to put out everybody else's candle so that my candle can shine brighter. But no, we're in a dark room. We need everybody's candle to shine bright. No need to put out everybody else's candle, right? So you're not interested in having gossip and slander. There's a craving there that the mind has to look good in front of others. That's part of that personal existence view. So you can get rid of that by eliminating gossip and slander. The unwholesome karma here, that if you gossip and slander, at the height of this, you can be murdered. There's people that have been murdered for this. Look in the news. You'll see investigative reporters that get on the news and they will talk about somebody damaging their reputation and they end up dead. Remember, I'm not sharing with you the way the world should be. I'm explaining to you the way the world is. And if you cause harm to others through your speech, then people are going to want to cause harm to you. So at the height of this, people can be murdered. At the very least, if you're gossiping and slandering with people, when your back is turned, what do you think they're going to do to you? They're going to be gossiping and slandering about you, right? Because you've got these people used to gossiping and slandering, and now when your back's turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. So if you're not interested in people gossiping and slandering about you, you're going to need to eliminate gossip and slander yourself, or you're not trying to degrade or diminish other people. Then there's harsh speech. Harsh speech is also based in craving, desire, attachment. This is your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. When you have a craving, desire, attachment, and you want something, your speech will tend to be harsh and bitter and hostile because you're trying to fear that other person into doing things your way. And as long as you're doing that, you can't live harmoniously with all beings. So you would like to get to the point where you're speaking gentle. So you're going to need to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. And some of you guys speak more than one language, so you're going to need to look at that within your language and see what are the ways for you to speak gentle in all these different languages that you speak. You might need to start using words like please and thank you, or sir and ma'am, or things like this, right? This is going to help you. In the relationships where you have craving, desire, attachment, you'll find it to be the most difficult to speak gently with your parents, with your brothers and sisters, with your life partner, people like this. You'll find it very challenging. Your children, if any of you guys have children, you'll find it very challenging if you have craving, desire, attachment in those relationships. So that's what the Buddha is teaching you. Remember, the Eightfold Path is helping you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So harsh speech is coming from craving, desire, attachment. So if you learn to speak gentle, realizing you can't just snap your fingers and instantly do this, that's why we have the mental discipline section. But if you learn how to speak gentle, you'll be able to have harmonious relationships. As long as you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, you're going to find it hard to speak with harsh or with gentle speech. You'll go around with harsh speech. So this isn't about snapping your fingers and instantly doing this stuff. It's about understanding what's wise and then gradually doing that, tweaking your life more and more. Then there's refraining from frivolous speech. What frivolous speech is, some people call it idle chatter. Have you ever been in a situation, or have you ever been this person where it's like yada, 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 yada. It's like 15, 20, 30 minutes and like nobody said anything except this one person. And you're like, oh my gosh, like when is this person going to stop talking, right? This is frivolous speech. It's not purposeful. It's not beneficial. It's just a craving to talk. Right? So if you're going to be influential, if you're going to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment, you're going to need to not have frivolous speech. Because if you have frivolous speech, people are going to tune you out. They're going to be disinterested in listening to you. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, when are they going to stop talking? So this person is actually not having a conversation. They're actually broadcasting. That's what's happening, right? And you're not interested in broadcasting. You're interested in having a discussion, right? So you would like to talk a little bit, and then pause and let the other person talk, and then talk a little bit more, and then let the other person talk. That's the way that you're going to have great relationships. So you're not interested in having frivolous speech because it's based in craving, desire, attachment. Okay, so this is the top level for right speech, or like I mentioned, wise speech. The Buddha is teaching you the natural laws here of what's going to produce the most harmonious relationships, because you're getting rid of craving, desire, attachment, eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. But then, as I mentioned, the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that other things plug into it, and it helps you to more fully understand. And that's what I've got here. This is called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. This is what you would ultimately like to build up to, where you're speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Speaking at the proper time has 3 aspects to it. One is not interrupting others. You don't like it when people interrupt you, so it's wise for you to not interrupt others. And you'll find that that'll produce harmony in your relationships. When you're interrupting people, there's a craving there. The mind's longing, yearning. You just can't wait to jump in there and talk. You're not even listening to what they have to say. You're just waiting for your opportunity. You're just jumping. You just want to jump in there and talk, right? That's the craving. And to eliminate your craving, you just wait your turn. Just wait until it's time to talk. That's one aspect of proper time. The other aspect of the proper time is making sure that your mind is prepared to talk. If you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're agitated or annoyed, not the proper time to talk, because the only thing that's going to come out is your hostility and bitterness, and you're going to damage your relationships. The third aspect of this is making sure it's the proper time for the other person. If they're angry and frustrated or hostile and bitter, not the proper time to talk. There's nothing beneficial is going to happen here. You're not going to be able to have a good conversation. So just choose not to have it, right? So this is the proper time. Speaking the truth, we talked about that up here, right? You like to be a true speaker, one to be relied on, trustworthy, dependable. Then we talked about speaking gently over here, paying attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. You know, in the Thai language, we have all kinds of ways to speak gentle. You know, we use words like, klap and ka at the end of each sentence in order to show politeness and respectness. We even have things beyond that. We can not just say kap, but we can say na kap, or kapom. These are like words that we can use. The Thai language is infused with all kinds of ways to show that you're speaking gently and warm. So you're going to need to look at the languages that you speak and figure out what is it that you can use in order to be able to show people, not because you're trying to show off, but you're just trying to speak in a way that's gentle so that they can understand you're coming from a place of politeness, kindness, friendliness, and respect. Right? And even still, they might still be bitter and harsh and hostile, but at least you're speaking in this way and you're maintaining that practice, speaking gently. And again, you'll find it to be the most difficult with the people that you're attached to. Parents, siblings, life partner, children, people like this, those are the ones you'll have the most challenges with. That's why you might think they're the problem. Because with your friends, you have a good time. You don't have any problem talking gentle with them. But, your parents, your siblings, your life partner, that's really hard, right? They're not the problem. It's your craving in your eye because you're wanting them to be a certain way. So you'll need to work on that gentle speech. Then they're speaking beneficially. This is about the method of your communication. It's not really about the topic, right? It's not like there's an approved list of topics anywhere that are considered to be beneficial. It's more about the method. You would like to be clear, concise, and precise in the way that you speak. Because if you just rambling chit-chat, that frivolous speech or idle chatter, people are going to tune you out. Right? So you like to be clear, concise, and precise in the way that you're speaking, right? Like if we're all on a project team and we're going to brief the boss, we like to be clear and concise and precise in the way that we're talking. Now we're speaking purposefully or beneficially. Then you'd like to wrap all of this in a mind of loving kindness, where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. The opposite of loving kindness would be inner hate. If you're speaking with inner hate, it's not going to produce wholesome karma or wholesome results. Because remember, that's what the Buddha is exposing you to, is the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. So here, you don't believe these teachings, right? Just like everything else. You don't believe what you see here. You need to look at this and relate to it and see through your reflection, is it true or is it false? And here's how you do it. Take a conversation that didn't go well, that it ended in a way that you would have preferred that it didn't end. Look at these 5 factors. You weren't speaking with all these 5 factors, and perhaps the other person wasn't either. You weren't speaking at the proper time. You weren't speaking the truth. You weren't speaking gently. You weren't speaking beneficially, or you weren't speaking with a mind of loving kindness. If you just missed one of these, the conversation had a potential of not going well. But if you missed more than one, surely the conversation didn't go well. But then you can look at the other side of this too, because these are natural laws. These natural laws affect you whether you're aware of them or not. Look at conversations that went well. Right? You probably had some during break. You might have had some conversations with your classmates during break, and the conversation went well. You were practicing these 5 factors. You were speaking at the proper time. What you said was true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness, because these natural laws affect you, whether you're aware of them or not. So you've been using these natural laws. You've been speaking the 5 factors of well-spoken speech at different times without even realizing that's what you were doing. So now what you would like to do is consciously start practicing these 5 factors, where more and more you're integrating them into your life. And it'll be challenging, like I said, in certain relationships, but eventually it'll become easier and easier in each one of those relationships. And now it'll be effortless for you to speak with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. So what we're talking about here is establishing something called barami. This is a Thai word, barami. The word barami means the one who people listen to. Here in Thailand, if you live in a village, there's typically village elders that everybody knows those people are successful. If you would like help with anything in your life, go talk to those people. They'll help you. And when I say they're successful, I don't necessarily mean financially successful. What I mean is they have harmonious relationships. Anybody can go outside and make a bunch of money. That's easy, right? But to have harmonious relationships with everybody in your life, that's challenging. So these people are successful. They have successful relationships. They have barami, the one who people listen to. And people in the village know if you need help, go speak with them because they're really influential. They're really helpful. They're really wise people. They'll be able to help you improve your life. So if you're interested in helping the people around you, like your friends and family, your coworkers and stuff like this, you're going to need barami. You're going to need to be the one who people listen to. And the way you establish this is by practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Because if you go around speaking in this way, people will know that you speak harmlessly, you speak wisely. And if you do this for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, more and more people are going to be interested in speaking with you because you'll have barami, the one who people listen to. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, they refer to this as right speech because that's all that existed during his lifetime. But nowadays, we might think about this as right communication, because there's much more than just speech that we do. We have text messages, we have emails, we have social media posts, we have voicemails, we have all different kinds of ways of communicating. So for example, if you went into a job interview and you used right speech, right, you might have knocked it out of the park. These people are like, oh my gosh, we would like to hire this guy tomorrow, right? Or this girl tomorrow, we'd like to hire them. But let me go check their social media. And then they go check your social media and they see all this bitterness and harshness and hostility, you're probably not going to get the job, right? So you like to have all your communication, wherever that might be, to be using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. So for example, if you're angry and you're really frustrated and you go over to your keyboard and you're pounding out an email, it's not the proper time to communicate. That's the first factor. It's not the proper time. You're angry. You're frustrated. So if you're going to pound on your keyboard with all that anger and hostility, and now you put that out into the world, it's just going to come back to you. So hit save instead of send, right? Come back a few hours later, a few days later when your mind's calm and look at that email again and try to decide whether it's wise for you to send that out. Because if you were speaking through your anger and hostility, you weren't speaking with a mind of loving kindness. You weren't communicating with a mind of loving kindness. So you'd like to make sure you're speaking at the proper time when your mind is prepared to talk or communicate. Okay, so we would think of this as right communication. So you really are going to need to work on this. This is the natural law of Gamma. But as you're making your way to that, you might decide to think about this, is speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. Because there's going to be time where you're going to need to gradually build up your practice to be able to learn the 5 factors and practice them all the time, right? But there's going to be situations between now and then that you can't remember. Right. And if you're talking on the phone with your mom and you're noticing the hostility come up, you can't be like, hey, mom, can you hold on? I need to get this book. I'm going to take a look. I think it's in chapter 5 under right speech. Hold on, mom. I know I'm really angry. I need to talk to you. But, you're not going to be able to do this. Right. You're not going to have the time to do that. So if you can remember to speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, this can help you. But ultimately, you're going to need to know the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. So one of the things that I did when I was learning this is I would keep it like on my phone. Like I took a picture of the words, or like nowadays we have these posters and stuff. If you have phones, I can send this stuff to you where there's these little reminders, and you can look in the morning, maybe after your meditation, before you go out in your day, you can look at the 5 factors and kind of put them in your mind. It only takes a minute or two to refresh your memory. And now all through your morning, you're trying to use the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And then maybe at lunchtime you look and you're like, oh, I missed speaking at the proper time. I kept interrupting that guy. Oh, I need to work on that. Or, oh, I didn't speak gentle over here, right? You can refresh your memory at lunchtime. And now for the rest of your day, now you can try to refine what you're doing. And then maybe in the evening, you look again. I used to look maybe 2 or 3 times a week, different days that I knew I was going out and having lots of meetings and conversations. I would refresh my memory to make sure that I had the 5 factors of well-spoken speech fresh in my mind. And there were times where I would just work on speaking the proper time, because I noticed I was interrupting a lot of people, and I would just spend like 2 weeks, 3 weeks just working on speaking at the proper time. And that's it, right? And I didn't try to do anything else. Of course, I was meditating, but I didn't do anything else but focus on speaking at the proper time. So you're going to need to dial this in slowly but surely in your life. And in the book, in chapter 5, I have a lot of details about speech, because you can really cause a lot of harm through your speech. So each one of those 5 factors of well-spoken speech, I've detailed it in the book to explain to you exactly how to practice this. So you're going to need to really work on your right speech. Okay. Then there's right action. Right action. Here's the words of the Buddha on right action. 1 second. I think it's getting a little bit warm. We're getting a little bit of sun. All right. Here's the words of the Buddha. He says, "In what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action." So he's talking about three things here: killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. We're going to talk about this in more detail tomorrow when I help you to understand the 5 precepts. I'm going to share with you the original words of the Buddha about what he taught there, because he's going to help you to be able to see how your mind can make wise decisions or unwise decisions. Here, he's teaching you to not cause harm through your bodily actions. And he's giving you 3 really big, impactful ones, but he's not giving you an entire list. Notice he doesn't say don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face, right? He didn't say that. But if you understand this step, you understand how unwise that is, because of the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, that if you punch someone in the face, they're probably going to punch you back, right? Or they're going to pull out a knife or a gun, or their friends or their family are going to attack you. That's the karma. That's the results of your decisions, right? So here he's giving you 3 really impactful ones, but he's not giving you an entire list. He didn't say that it would be unwise to drag your suitcase through the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet and bump into their knees, because airplanes didn't even exist 2,500 years ago, right? So he couldn't have given you an exhaustive list. But if you understand this step, you understand that it's not wise to cause harm through your body, and that you would like to pay attention to how you interact in the world. So you're going to need to see this for yourself more and more clearly. But these are 3 really big, impactful ones. And when you learn the 5 precepts, you're going to be able to see a more expanded version, where here he's just talking in general. So for example, like this, refraining from sexual misconduct. Well, what is sexual misconduct, right? The Buddha is going to show you how you can cause harm through your sexual activity. And he talks about things like having sex with minors, having sex outside of relationships, having sex against someone's consent, like forcing them to have sex. These are all harmful activities that you could do. If you have a craving for sex, these are potential harmful things that you could do. And it's helpful to note that the Buddha never taught that same-gender relationships is part of sexual misconduct. He was aware of them because he kind of essentially talks about it in his teachings, because people have been having sex with the same gender ever since the beginning of humanity. There's never been a time where everybody had sex with the opposite gender. And the way that we know that is because of the universal truth of impermanence. It's not possible for every single person to be interested in having sex with the opposite gender. That would be permanence. But we understand the universal truth of impermanence. So we're going to talk about this more tomorrow with the 5 precepts. But I usually like to give people the heads up that this sexual misconduct doesn't include same-gender relationships. And this is how wise the Buddha was, that 2,500 years ago, he already understood that there's no harm in 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex with each other. They're not causing harm to anybody. So right action, you'll never see an exhaustive list from the Buddha of every single action that would cause harm. But there are situations where he talks about things like substances that cause heedlessness. He talks about gambling. He talks about some things, but he never gives an exhaustive list. Okay, so you're going to need to explore that. Then there's right livelihood. Here he says, "In what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood." So here he's just saying something very general and very broad, but when you peer into his teachings, he gives you the details. What a livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life. Right? You would like to sustain your life in a way that doesn't cause harm to others. If you're sustaining your life off of causing harm to others, this harm is going to come back to you. So what I'm going to teach you today is called the first fold of purification. Then there's a second fold of purification as well. The first fold of purification is helping you to get to a certain level of purification where you're not causing harm to others. So here he talks about 5 livelihoods that would cause harm if you chose to do these. If you had business in weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. And you can look at each one of these and independently verify them. Remember, they're not rules or commandments. He's helping you to see the natural law of cause and effect. So I'll show you how to do this. Let's just take this one of substances that cause heedlessness. If I was to stand on the street corner and I was selling cocaine or crystal methamphetamine or heroin into the community, I'm causing harm. And now, because of my choice to sustain my life off of causing harm, harm is going to come back to me. Because now people are going out robbing and stealing to bring me money, or people are selling their body to be able to bring me money, right? I'm causing harm to the community because they're getting addicted to this substance. Now, standing on the street corner, I can get beat up, I can get robbed, I can get murdered, I can get arrested, I can get addicted to these substances myself. This is the harm that's coming to me from the decisions that I'm making, right? This is because I'm choosing to sustain my life off of causing harm to others. So now harm is coming to me. But this is the natural law of karma. This isn't the human law, right? The human law is one thing, but the natural law of karma is functioning at a much higher level. So if you were to just follow the human laws, you wouldn't actually get to enlightenment, because the human laws are imperfect. They're created by human beings. But the natural law of karma is not created by human beings, right? So, for example, your government might say, yeah, you can go be a cashier at that liquor store. We're not going to arrest you for that. But if you understand the natural law of karma, you might realize that that's unwise, because that's where people get robbed, they get beat up, they get murdered, right? Because there's people coming in there that are drunk or intoxicated, and they're going to maybe rob you or beat you up or murder you. At the very least, you're going to be dealing with intoxicated clientele. There's going to be times where people are going to come in drunk, and you're going to have to now deal with this, right? So if you're looking to get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life, you're going to need to make decisions wisely about your livelihood and how you choose to sustain your life. So this is the first part, that you choose a livelihood that isn't causing harm to others. But then the Buddha gives you guidance still as part of the first fold of purification of how to perform your livelihood in a way that's going to produce wholesome results for you. Because he's helping you to get to this point where you're performing your livelihood really well and you can have lots of success in your career. He talks about eliminating scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. What scheming is like having corruption. So, for example, if I was a politician and I was the mayor of a town, I'm not causing any harm to anybody. I'm not selling weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness or poisons. But if I was corrupt and I was doing backhanded things, 10 years, 15 years into my career, people find out about this, they're probably not going to reelect me, right? So now I'm going to have difficulty sustaining my life. Then there's flattery. What flattery is where you're saying insincere comments just to get people to buy things from you. Have you ever been into a store where you walked in and they're like, oh my goodness, that shirt looks so beautiful on you. It brings out the colors of your eyes so nicely. I got some earrings that'll go really good with that shirt. You want to come over here and take a look, right? It's like, ugh, you kind of feel icky, right? You might have even walked out of the store when this happened, right? So if you just have flattery where you're trying to give insincere comments just to get people to buy things from you, you're not going to actually be successful in your livelihood. So you're not interested in doing those kinds of things. What hinting is where you're not clear and concise and precise in your work. So again, if we were all on a project team and we're going to brief the boss about the project we're working on, we're not interested in hinting around. We're interested in being clear and concise and precise in the way that we communicate about the work that we're doing. Then belittling is to be degrading or diminishing towards your customers, your competition, your business partners, people like this, right? Your customers, your business partners, your competition. You're not interested in being belittling and degrading and disparaging, even your coworkers, right? You're not interested in doing that. If you degrade and diminish people, it's going to look bad for you, and it's not going to promote the most success in your career. Sometimes people think that the way to get ahead in their career is to diminish and degrade others, maybe even your competition. If you started a business, you might think if you degrade and diminish your competition, that it's going to make you look good, but it doesn't. It actually makes it look bad for you. So you're not interested in belittling your customers, your business partners, your coworkers, or your competition. If somebody asks you a question about your competition, just say, I'm not sure what they do, but this is what I can do for you. right? Because you don't know what they do 100%. You can say, I'm not fully sure what they actually do, but if you would like me to help you with this, I can help you with this. This is what I can help you with, right? That's a way for you to just not even talk about your competition. Then there's pursuing gain with gain. What this is where you don't really care about the product or the service that you're involved in, that you're just going there for the money. That's all you care about. It's just collecting that paycheck. If you've ever had that kind of job, you probably dragged yourself to work each day. Maybe initially when you first got the job, you were excited and happy because you were getting money, a certain amount of money, more money. But then over time, when that craving burned out, you just kind of felt dull and mundane in this job. You just kind of dragged yourself to work each day. Right? So what the Buddha is teaching you how to do is where you can have enthusiasm and ambition in the work that you're doing, where it doesn't even feel like work, that you enjoy this work so much that you would do it even if you didn't get paid for it. Of course, you're going to need to get paid because you need to sustain your life, but you'd like to get to the point where you enjoy your work so much that even if you didn't get paid for it, you would still do it. You can have enthusiasm and ambition about what you're doing. You know, there's people like this in Thailand. Right? You might have run across a few of them. If you go out on the street, there's probably some lady on the corner selling mango and sticky rice. She probably woke up this morning, went out to her mango grove. She got her little basket and she picked her mangoes and she was just so happy brushing off her mangoes and putting them in her basket. And she brought them inside, cleaned them up. Then she brought them to the market. Now she's standing there with a big smile on her face, just slicing up that mango and putting it over the sticky rice and pouring the milk on top of the sticky rice and mango. And then she hands it to you with a big old smile. And then she's like, 40 baht, please. Right? And then she collects her little 40 baht. She doesn't even care about the 40 baht. She just enjoys serving you that mango and sticky rice. And she can't imagine doing anything else but serving you that mango and sticky rice. So what you've got to do is you've got to find your mango and sticky rice. What's your mango and sticky rice, right? What is it that you can be doing that you have such enthusiasm about that it doesn't even feel like work? You just enjoy doing it each and every day, right? So that's what the Buddha is guiding you to be able to do. And this is the first level of purification, that you eliminate these livelihoods because they're causing harm to others and harm's going to come back to you, and that you conduct your livelihood in this way where you're not scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, or pursuing gain with gain. And this is the first fold of purification. But then there's a second level to this. So if you're in a job that you currently don't like, right, or if you're in between jobs, you're unemployed, you might decide to look at the entire teaching on right livelihood. It's in volume 12, chapter 14, and it's over there on the bookshelf, and you can download it for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us, or you can get it on Amazon. But it's volume 12, chapter 14. You'll be able to see it in the book, and you'll be able to read the first fold of purification and the second fold of purification too. And it's in the words of the Buddha, and you'll see my words in there to be able to help you too, just like I do here. Okay, so this is right livelihood. Now, just to kind of summarize this is the moral conduct section where we had right speech, where the Buddha is teaching you essentially right communication or wise communication, how to speak in a way that is harmless, where you're not causing harm through your verbal conduct, but also you need to pay attention to your emails, your texts, your chats, your social media posts. All of this should be harmless, using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And remember, there's that top level too, where you eliminate lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. And remember, it's going to be the most challenging in situations where you have attachment, where you have craving. So this is something you gradually tweak it little by little and improve it. Then there's right action. This is ensuring that you're not causing any harm through your bodily actions, right? You're going to need to look at the way you interact in the world, making sure you're not causing any harm. Then you like to make sure that you pay attention to your livelihood and the way that you choose to sustain your life, that you're not causing any harm with any of those 5 livelihoods or the scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, or pursuing gain with gain. That's the first level of purification that you like to get to and start from there. Okay, so any questions on the moral conduct section? No questions? Okay. Oh, sure. Go ahead, Boulder. Do you have a mic over there?
Do you remember hearing anything about the Buddha saying that people shouldn't work too much? That it wasn't like a really noble, like, because we were growing up, we were sort of raised like, oh, hardworking, he's a hardworking man, the more you work, and blah, blah, blah. Work your whole life. But I remember reading somewhere that Buddha said, don't work so much, don't work more than you have to.
He wouldn't say it like that because that's like putting expectations on you. Like, don't work too much, right? That's like, sounds like a rule or a commandment, like putting expectations on you. But he talked about living a balanced life, right? Like we've been talking about this for many decades now. The Buddha was talking about it 2,500 years ago about balancing out your life and making sure that you're attending to all the various things that you have going on in your life. So that's why you'll see Thai people here. They'll work for like 4 hours and they're done, or 6 hours. I don't know if you've ever been to a restaurant where you show up and they're coming out of the restaurant, like all the workers are locking the doors at like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And you're like looking at the door and the door says they're open till 8 p.m. And you're like, what's happening? You're like, oh, we sold all our food. We're going home. Right? Where oftentimes in countries where we come from, we'd go out and buy some more food and come back and make a whole bunch of more money. Not Thai people. They're like, we made enough money. We're going home. Right? And they'll just lock their door and leave the restaurant. Right? So the Buddha did teach to live a balanced life. And you're going to need to be able to practice that middle way. And it's only you that's going to know what that balance is. And you'll need to find that balance in your life. Whereas if you were just work all the time, you're not going to feel balanced. Okay. All right. So now let's move to the mental discipline section. If it wasn't for the mental discipline section, you wouldn't be able to implement the moral conduct, because as you heard me share, the moral conduct is going to be challenging in the times where you have craving, desire, attachment. The wisdom section brings to your attention that you have craving, desire, attachment, and you need to eliminate it, and that's what's causing your discontentedness. The moral conduct teaches you the type of conduct that would be wise to ensure you don't have craving, desire, attachment, but the mental discipline is going to teach you how to do that. So you're going to need to learn the mental discipline to be able to implement the moral conduct. So it starts with right effort. So I'm going to read this to you in the words of the Buddha, and then I'm going to teach it to you. So here's the words of the Buddha on right effort. He says, in what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, and exerts his mind and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort. So he's talking about 4 things here, right? What he's talking about is to prevent unwholesome mental states from coming into the mind, to abandon unwholesome mental states that are currently in the mind, to produce wholesome mental states that are not currently in the mind, and to maintain wholesome mental states that are currently in the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to do this. Okay? So I'm going to give you some examples so you can understand what right effort is. Right now, you probably have no interest in killing another human being. It's probably the farthest thing from your mind. It's way outside your mind. You're not interested in killing another human being. The Buddha is saying, apply the effort to prevent that type of thing from ever coming into your mind. And there's other unwholesome things that are not currently in your mind right now. So you're going to need to apply the effort to prevent that from ever coming into your mind. But then there are certain unwholesome things that are in your mind right now. You're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate these out of the mind. So let's just say somebody was in a current relationship and they have a craving for having sex outside of their relationship. You know that that's going to cause harm in your relationship. So if you notice that craving coming up, you would like to apply the effort to eliminate that out of the mind. Or say you have anger, frustration, or agitation coming up in your mind. this is an unwholesome mental state. You're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate that out of the mind. That's the second part, applying the effort to eliminate unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind. Then there are certain wholesome qualities that you're going to need to cultivate in order to be able to get to enlightenment. And these wholesome qualities may not actually be in your mind right now. You're going to need to apply the effort to produce those wholesome qualities. So, for example, you're going to learn about generosity and how generosity is the giving and sharing of more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. This generosity is training your mind to let go, right? That's what the generosity is doing for you, because the craving, desire, attachment, the mind is holding on. And you'll find that you'll sometimes be selfish in certain situations where you need to be able to train your mind to practice generosity. You can be joyful in giving and sharing with other people around you. Well, if you find it hard to share with people, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this wholesome quality into your mind, because it's not currently in your mind. That's what the Buddha is teaching you, that this right effort is to produce wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind. Compassion might be another one. Sometimes people don't have compassion. What compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. On one side of this, someone who would be indifferent to another person's suffering. They would be like, I don't care, that person's homeless. Who cares? It's not my mom. It's not my dad. I don't care. That's indifference, right? But on the other side of this, someone could be worried or have anxiety. Oh my gosh, those kids don't have food. How are they going to eat? Oh my gosh, I'm so worried. You can have all this anxiety, right? Well, the middle way is compassion, where you have concern for the misfortune of others. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to take action. It just is that you have concern for the misfortune of others. Where if you're noticing that you have indifference, or if you're noticing you're having worry or anxiety about people's unfortunate circumstances, you're going to need to apply effort to bring this to the middle where you can have compassion. This is a mental state where you have concern for the misfortune of others. Then there are certain wholesome qualities that are actually in your mind right now, and you're going to need to support those, encourage them. Don't allow them to fade away. Bring them to full growth and full perfection. A good example of this is loving kindness. You probably have loving kindness in your mind, where you do have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, but it's probably not been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development, because in some situations, you're angry and hostile and bitter towards people. Your ill will comes out towards people. That's the opposite of loving kindness, because it hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. So where you see your mind's having ill will, you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate that unwholesome quality, and you're going to need to apply the effort to support and encourage the wholesome quality of loving kindness to come through in the mind more and more, so that it's permeating in the mind, and eventually you have loving kindness for all beings, all beings. Then there's something like sympathetic joy. You probably have sympathetic joy in your mind. What sympathetic joy is joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it. This is the opposite of jealousy or envy. Okay? So say somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'm thinking about going to Thailand. You're like, oh, I was in Thailand. You're going to have a great time. That's a wonderful place to go. You know, there's this lady that sells mango and sticky rice on the corner. She makes really good mango and sticky rice. You might decide to give her a little stop, right? So you might have sympathetic joy in that situation. But let's just say you're at work and there's a new position that opens up and you're going to apply for it to try to get a promotion, try to get more money and a bigger title, a better office. You and a couple of your coworkers apply for it, but they get the job instead of you. And now they walk past your office. Hey, guess what? I got that job. And now maybe you've noticed this jealousy come up in your mind. That's because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. You had it with the person going to Thailand, but you didn't have it in this other situation. So you're going to need to apply the effort to support that, encourage it. Don't allow it to fade away. Okay? So this is the 4 right efforts that you're preventing unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind. Any unwholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, you're applying the effort to eliminate those. Any wholesome qualities that are currently not in your mind, You're bringing those into the mind. You're applying the effort to bring those wholesome qualities in. And then any wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, you're applying the effort to support those, encourage them. Don't allow them to fade away. Bring them to full growth and full perfection and full development. The way that I taught this to my young son is to kick out the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. You're applying the effort to do that. Okay, so this is right effort. You actually wouldn't be able to practice right effort without the next step of right mindfulness. You're going to need this one in order to practice the right effort. So I'm going to teach this one to you. It says, in what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. So he's talking about 4 things here. Body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, and mental objects as mental objects. What he's referring to here is something called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. But let me first just talk about mindfulness in general before we talk about this. Mindfulness in general just means awareness of mind. You'd like to have awareness of what's going on in your mind. Oftentimes when we're in the unenlightened state, we have no idea what's going on in our mind. We're just plowing through life. We're plowing through life, knocking down the trees, burning up the forest. We're like, who lit that fire? I smell some smoke. You look behind you and like all the trees are knocked down. You're like, whoa, who did all that stuff? And it was you that was doing all that stuff, right? That's kind of like what we do in the unenlightened state. We just plow through the world, just knocking down trees, burning up the forest, not really caring how we're interacting with other people. But when you start to cultivate mindfulness, you start having awareness of your mind, your thoughts, your ideas, what's going through your mind. You'd like to be able to develop that. And sometimes people just hang out with that for a few months, just working on building up their mindfulness. And you need to be careful because there's this word mindfulness has made its way into common language. And a lot of people use this word now, but they don't use it in the way that the Buddha taught it. They might say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to that table? What they're really saying is careful. Can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? That's really all they're saying. But the way you would like to think about it, if you're going to understand it in the way that the Buddha taught it, is awareness of mind. That's what it means. Awareness of your thoughts, your ideas, what's going on in your own mind. So you're going to need that as part of the path to enlightenment. But then in more detail, you're going to need the 4 foundations of mindfulness. What this is that you're aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. What the bodily sensations are that we're talking about here is that before you become discontent, before that mind becomes angry or frustrated or some other discontent feeling, there's some bodily sensations that are happening. It's like an early warning system alerting you that the mind's about to get angry or frustrated. You might notice tingling in the body, rising up towards the chest. You might notice tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. This is the early warning system. This is the bodily sensations. We're not talking about just an itch here. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this early indication that you're about to get angry, you're about to get frustrated, or some other discontent feeling. Even the pleasant feelings have bodily sensations. There's like little tingling across your shoulders, up the back of your neck, over your skull. Some people call this warm fuzzies. Right? You have these little warm fuzzies coming over your body. This is the indication that you're about to experience a conditioned feeling. So your mind is alerting you. It's like, I'm about to experience a conditioned feeling. I'm about to experience a conditioned feeling. I'm about to experience a conditioned feeling. And the Buddha teaches you to apply right effort and cut that off and let it go. Nope, not going to let you do that. Not going to let you have that conditioned feeling because the mind wants to form this conditioned feeling. So you're not suppressing your feelings or repressing them. You're actually cutting it off and letting it go before it becomes a feeling. You're not allowing your mind to form the conditioned feeling. So you're getting way ahead of it so that you can train your mind not to form that conditioned feeling. You need to be willing to let go of the temporary happiness in order to get to the permanent joy, the permanent happiness, right? So you like to cut off and let go as a bodily sensation. The way you might think about this is if you were taking a boat ride from, I don't know, Australia to Indonesia, and you're out in the middle of the sea, you'd like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once the water gets in the boat, you got a real problem to deal with, right? You got to get this water out. It's the same thing, right? That if you allow the anger to come into the mind, now you've got a real problem to deal with. You got to get it out. But if you can cut it off and let it go before it even comes into the mind, you've preserved your mind. You've protected the mind, right? Because then you can, in the boat, you can just smooth sailing, right? But if you allow that water to come into the boat, you got a real problem to deal with. You're in the middle of the sea, right? So you'd like to cut off and let go at the bodily sensations. But you're not going to be able to do that every single time because your mind's not so well trained right now, right? So it is going to become a feeling sometimes. You're going to get angry. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to get agitated or annoyed. And what you'd like to do is cut it off and let it go there, right? At the feeling, if you can. You're not always going to be able to, right? But if that's the next best option, cut it off as a feeling. Because if you don't cut it off as a feeling, now it's going to start affecting the condition of your mind. Have you ever been angry or frustrated for a couple of days or like a week or two? You've been grumpy and irritable? Of course you have. I know you have, because you didn't understand this. None of us did when we were first born. We didn't have this wisdom. We didn't cut it off as a bodily sensation, and we didn't cut it off as a feeling. We were probably blaming everybody else. And now it started affecting the condition of our mind. For a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, a week or two, we were grumpy and irritable and frustrated. If you missed it as a bodily sensation, you missed it as a feeling, cut it off as a condition of the mind. Because if you don't cut it off there, it's now going to feed a mental object, right? The mental objects are deeply rooted containers in your mind. And in this situation, we're talking about ill will. All those 10 fetters that we talked about yesterday, those are all mental objects. They're deeply rooted containers in the mind. We weren't born with ill will. We didn't come into the world with ill will. We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies. That's why children were so joyful. We're like, ha, 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 ha. We're always jokey and cheerful because we didn't have ill will in our mind. But over time, we acquired it because we had cravings and we had a lack of wisdom. We had ignorance. We had cravings, and sometimes those got fulfilled and we were happy, but sometimes they didn't get fulfilled. Mommy and daddy, you're the worst mommy and daddy ever, right? And now we started forming this mental object, this deeply rooted container in the mind. In this case, it's the ill will. So what the Buddha is teaching you to do is purify your mind of these mental objects. And you're going to need to have awareness of these mental objects. That's why you ultimately need to learn the 10 fetters. You need to learn each individual 10 fetter, what they are, the symptoms of them, how to eliminate them, and how to know that you've eliminated them. Because what the Buddha is teaching you to do is to put a blockade at the bodily sensations, to cut off and let go. That's preserving your mind so that it's not continuing to form conditioned feelings. And then all the while you're having that blockade, you're uprooting the mental objects and getting them out of the mind, right? Those deeply rooted containers. Like we didn't go into the nursery with conceit. Remember we talked about conceit yesterday, like arrogance and pride, measuring and comparing. Like we didn't go into the nursery like, my gloves are better than your gloves. My hat is better than your hat. My crib's better than your crib. We didn't do that. It wasn't until we got older that our mind had that, right? So we need to be able to uproot that and get that out of the mind. That's what the Buddha is teaching you to do, is have awareness of these mental objects. So we're cutting off and letting go at the bodily sensations, realizing it's sometimes going to become a feeling because your mind's not all the way trained. And if you can, cut it off and let it go there. But if the best scenario would be to cut it off as a bodily sensation. But if you miss it as a bodily sensation, you miss it as a feeling, then cut it off as a conditioned condition of the mind, because otherwise it's going to feed these mental objects, and now more and more you have these deeply rooted containers in the mind that you need to uproot out of the mind. So let me explain how this works with a real life scenario. Okay, here's the way it would work. Let's just say you're at home, you're watching the news, and something comes on the news, and you're noticing this bodily sensation. This frustration is building. You notice it. It's tightening in the chest, the tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. Well, don't just sit there and dwell in that. Allow the mind to form a feeling. Instead, apply right effort, cut that off and let it go. Turn off the news, get up and go walk outside, go for a walk, take a bike ride, go to the kitchen, get a glass of water. This would be an application of right effort. You're redirecting the mind in another direction. You're taking it somewhere else, not allowing it to dwell and stay wired that way to keep forming the conditioned feeling. So that's the way it would look in day-to-day life, where you're noticing the bodily sensation arising, you cut it off and let it go, redirect the mind, take it somewhere else. Don't allow the mind to form that feeling. But if it does form the feeling, try to cut it off and let it go there. And then if you can't cut it off as a feeling, you're going to need to cut it off as a condition of the mind, because otherwise it's going to then feed these mental objects. So this is right mindfulness. And that's what's going to help you to apply right effort, right? You're not going to be able to eliminate the unwholesome and cultivate the wholesome if you're not aware what's going on in the mind. Then we've got right concentration. This is what's going to help you to develop your right mindfulness. If it wasn't for right concentration, you wouldn't be able to develop mindfulness. So here, what the Buddha is doing in the Eightfold Path is he's explaining to you what's called the jhanas. I'm not going to read this to you. You're going to need to learn about the jhanas, but in a foundational class like this, no need to learn about them. You need to actually understand how to practice right concentration. What he's describing here is he's talking about these 4 preliminary phases that your mind experiences, enhanced qualities of mind, before you get to the first stage of enlightenment. There's the first, second, third, and fourth stage of enlightenment. But before you get to the first stage of enlightenment, your mind's going to experience the jhanas. These are 4 preliminary phases that the mind goes through where there's these enhanced qualities of mind. And the way you get to those jhanas is by practicing the entire Eightfold Path. That's why the Buddha put this as right concentration, because what he's describing here is he's describing the results of having practiced the entire Eightfold Path. This is the results that you're going to start to experience as you're practicing the Eightfold Path. There's going to be these enhanced qualities of mind. I'll just give you one example. In the unenlightened state, you have a conscious mind and you have a subconscious mind. And both of these are actually polluted, but the subconscious mind is more polluted than the conscious mind. By the time you get to the second jhana, you don't have a subconscious mind anymore. You've trained so well that you now have full awareness of your entire mind, because you don't have awareness of your subconscious mind. If you've ever been somewhere where you're hanging out with friends and you just blurted something out and you're like, I don't think that way. Maybe it was like something racist or something like that. You're like, where did that come from? Like, I don't think that way. That's your subconscious mind that you're unaware of, that it's polluted, and it just threw this polluted thought into your conscious mind and you just blurted it out, right? So by the time you get to the second jhana, you will have full awareness of your entire mind, where you no longer have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. It's just one mind. The Buddha calls it unification of the mind, or oneness of mind. Okay, so there's certain enhanced qualities that you'll experience as you're training with the Eightfold Path. But in terms of how to actually practice right concentration as a factor by itself, the Buddha teaches this in other parts of his teachings. And here, what he teaches you is to develop a daily meditation practice and to practice singleness of mind. This is how you practice right concentration, to actually get to the point where your mind's focused and concentrated. The meditation practice is a breathing mindfulness meditation. That's what you're learning in this class, in this course, where you're focused on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and come back. What you're doing is you're building that internal mechanism in your mind that you have mindfulness or awareness of mind. That's your mindfulness, and you're developing right effort where you can cut off and let go. So that now in your day-to-day life, that when you're noticing the anger and frustration arise, you can cut it off and let it go. So we're going to talk about this after lunch, where I'm going to go teaching you the ins and outs of meditation. So you'll see how it fits in with this entire path. The meditation is helping you to build that internal mechanism to be able to cut off and let go. Because when you were lonely and bored and you were angry and frustrated at that boyfriend or girlfriend, when you guys broke up, you couldn't cut it off. That's why it lasted for 2 weeks or a month or 2 months or 3 months. Some people, multiple years, they're angry at an ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend because they can't cut it off. It's affecting the condition of their mind, right? So this meditation is going to help you to do that. So we'll talk about meditation after lunch. Then there's singleness of mind. You'd like to just do one thing at a time, where you don't allow your mind to attempt to do things like multitask or daydream. There's no such thing as multitasking. It's actually not possible for you to multitask, right? If you've been taught to multitask, what you're actually doing is you're doing one thing for like 3 to 5 seconds, 8 seconds, 10 seconds, and then you're rapidly cycling to another thing, and you're doing that thing for 8, 5, 10 seconds, and now you're doing this other thing. So if you're talking on the phone to your mom, you're watching TV, and you're eating a sandwich, you're not actually doing all 3 of those things at the same time. You're actually talking to your mom for a few seconds, watching TV for a few seconds, eating your sandwich for a few seconds. That's why when you get off the phone, you can't even remember what you talked about, because you didn't have concentration. In terms of bringing your right speech, your wisdom of right speech to bear in this conversation, you can't do that if your mind's racing around like this, right? This conversation that could have otherwise been maybe 10, 15 minutes, it ended up being 45 minutes or an hour. And you might have even said something that you regret, and now you need to call mom back. Mom, I'm sorry. I apologize. I shouldn't have said that, right? So you think you're actually saving yourself time, but you're not. You're actually spending more time on the phone. Plus, you have to go clean this up. You made some unwise decisions, right? And you didn't really enjoy the TV program, and you didn't really enjoy the sandwich because your mind's racing around like this. And now when you get home, you might find it hard to rest and relax. If you go to work all day long and you're racing around like this, you'll be stressed and have anxiety when you get home. This is like a racehorse. If you've ever been to a racetrack and you saw horses racing around the track, if you go to the barn, they're all hyped up. They can't calm down because they've been racing around the racetrack. And that's what you're doing with your mind. If you're not practicing singleness of mind, it's like racing around the racetrack. And now when you go home, it's hard for you to relax because your mind's stressed and having anxiety. So you like to do just one thing at a time. If you're washing the dishes and your mind is daydreaming about something, you like to cut that off and let it go. Because if you allow your mind to do that, you're going to slip up and you're going to cut yourself. Next thing you know, you're going to be in the hospital getting stitches, right? Or say you're in a business meeting and you're 3 or 6 months away from your trip to Thailand. And when your boss is presenting some new project, your mind's thinking about Thailand, right? You're just like, man, I can't wait to get to Thailand. Man, I want to get out of here, right? You're not applying your full effort and your full wisdom to the project that you're now receiving, and you're not going to do well in your career. So where you see your mind's daydreaming and it's wandering, you'd like to cut that off and let it go and bring your mind back to the meeting. If you're in a class like this and you're like, wow, it's almost 12:30. I want to go to lunch. Like, what's going on? Like pad thai, like mango and sticky rice. Like, we've been talking about this stuff. Like, I'm ready to eat. Right? You got to cut that off, let it go, come back to the class and like learn, right? So you like to just do one thing at a time. That's what singleness of mind is. The way that I think about this is if you had a piece of wood and you had a steel rod and you were grinding it back and forth, when you first start, the steel rod's going to bounce around a lot because there's no groove there yet. And that's what your mind might be doing now. It might be bouncing around a lot. But if you grind the steel rod back and forth enough, you're going to get a groove going in this wood. And when it pops out, you're going to know it. And you're going to bring it right back to the groove. That's what I'm teaching you. Bring it back to the groove. Keep on grinding. Get that groove going. Eventually, if you do this for long enough, you'll get a deeper and deeper groove, and it'll never pop out. It's impossible for your mind to pop out. By the time you train with singleness of mind and you have right concentration, your mind will never pop out of that concentration. It's impossible for the mind to do so. So you need to be able to grind that steel rod where anytime you see your mind wandering, cut that off. Use your mindfulness or awareness of mind and then apply right effort to cut it off and bring it back. Okay, so this is right concentration. So just as a summary for you guys, right effort is taking the initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. Right mindfulness is having awareness of the mind, just general awareness. You might start out with that, but then more detail, cultivate the 4 foundations of mindfulness, where you have awareness of the bodily sensations, that early warning system that's alerting you that you're about to become discontent. You're aware of the feelings, aware of the condition of the mind, and then the mental objects. Then you're going to need to work on building a meditation practice and practicing singleness of mind. And then you're going to start to experience the jhanas, those enhanced qualities of mind, which you can learn in other programs that I share, other courses and things, other retreats. I'll teach you what those jhanas are. So you'll know that you're experiencing them when you're experiencing them. But for now, this is just building up the foundation. Okay? So any questions on the mental discipline section? No questions? Leo? Once I said lunch, everyone's like, no questions. I'm ready for lunch.
Yeah. So I think I asked it before, but sometimes when I play, for example, a shooter game on the phone, for example, I start the game and right away 4, 5, 6 times someone kills me. Then sometimes I see the frustration coming or annoyance coming up. So sometimes I stay a little bit in this, still playing, and sometimes it's fading away, this annoyance. Or sometimes not, and then I put the phone down. But would you suggest to just if I see this annoyance, right away put the phone down, put it away, cut it off?
Yes.
Would you suggest that?
Yes, but there's something else you can do. If I was you, I would go away from that game for like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months and don't play it at all. Yeah, I saw your face. You're like, oh, that's the craving, right? That's the craving. The mind wants it to be permanent. If you can put it down and go away from it for like 3 months, 6 months or something like this, train your mind that, it's not something that your mind's craving, then you'll actually be able to ultimately start playing it again, but you won't have the discontentedness associated with it. In fact, I know you're into video games and, my son and I have been too at different times, but you need to distance yourself from all video games for an extended period of time and then train your mind to let go. And then at some point you'll be able to start playing them again, but you'll be able to do it with peace and joy, and you'll just have fun with it. It won't be about winning and, the longing, yearning, the craving that you have now. So you're going to need to distance yourself. This is the way that you eliminate an attachment. You distance yourself from it. You train your mind to let it go. And then you're able to come back. Like that's what the Buddha did. Well, the Buddha left his family, right, for 6 years, but then he came back. Right? That's what people don't understand. He actually came back. He started spending time with his family again, but he needed to distance himself from it in order to train his mind to let go. And then he was able to come back and be able to now interact peacefully and joyfully. So that's what you're going to need to do with each one of these attachments, is to distance yourself from it and then let it go.
And when the annoyance comes up, it's still good to just right away put the phone down. Move out.
Well, so once you've distanced yourself, and let's just say you're gone from video gaming for 6 months, right? Then when you start to reintegrate it into your life, I suggest you do it slowly. So you pick up the game, you play for like 5 minutes or so, and then you put it down and you go away from it for 2 or 3 days. And now you pick it up again. Now maybe you play it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and you put it down and go away for 2 or 3 days or 4 days. So you slowly kind of integrate it back in your life like this. And now you're able to play it without any craving, desire, attachment. Joycelyn or Jocelyn? Cut that off.
In the opposite situation of an attachment, but an aversion. Okay. So you would do the opposite of what you just said for an attachment.
Yeah. So if there's anything you're getting pleasant feelings from, remember, conditioned pleasant feelings, you're going to need to distance yourself from it, and you're going to need to cut it off and let it go over having been distanced from it for multiple months. And then for a lot of things like video games and stuff like that, you can bring it back in, right? Something like drugs or alcohol or something like that, you're not going to bring it back in. But something like video gaming or something like that, if you're getting pleasant feelings from it, you can distance yourself from it, train your mind to be peaceful and joyful without it. Then you can slowly integrate it back in. This thing over here that you're getting painful feelings from, like I used to not like durian fruit. You know durian fruit?
Mm-hmm.
Smells like poop. Never had poop in my mouth, but I think if I did, it would be just like this, right? Because of the consistency of it. I used to be repulsed by it. I had aversion to it.
Right.
You're going to need to bring that in.
Okay,
So I needed to start eating durian fruit to train my mind that it's just a substance to nourish the body. That's all it is. So you're going to need anything that you have aversion and you're pushing away, you're going to need to bring it in and then expose the mind to it to be able to be comfortable and content in that situation.
All right. So back to pleasant feelings, conditioned pleasant feelings. Okay, so I had an experience this morning where something very pleasant that I've been wanting for a while happened, and I got so excited. So I'm now understanding the necessity of not having the shakeable mind for even pleasant. So what happened was, it's even happening now. I immediately started getting the constriction in the here.
Yeah.
And it got so intense, I went into an asthmatic episode.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm understanding that even the pleasant is disturbing.
Yep.
And so that's the reason to eliminate it.
Yes.
Because I didn't understand that before.
Yeah.
And the thing you said just now about releasing the conditional pleasant feelings for permanent unconditional pleasant feelings.
You're eliminating your craving for something to be permanent, right? Because as long as like he's craving to always win in the video game, he can only be happy when he wins.
Oh, okay.
And now when he loses, he's angry and frustrated. So he needs to train his mind to distance himself from that because he's getting pleasant feelings from it. And now he needs to distance himself from it for an extended period of time. And then he can train his mind to be content and peaceful, whether he has the games or not. And then slowly but surely he can integrate it back in. And now he can train his mind to not form conditioned feelings based on whether he wins or loses. Okay. All right. So it's 12:37. We've walked all the way through this Eightfold Path, and this is typically what happens. Is we usually go up to 12:30. Would you guys be okay with having like a coming back at 1:45? It wouldn't be an hour and a half lunch like we normally get. Is you guys okay? Is anybody craving a 1.5 hour? Are you angry and frustrated that we're not doing an hour and a half? No? See? You guys just verified the third noble truth. When you don't have craving, desire, attachment, there's no discontentedness, right? But if you were craving an hour and a half lunch, you'd be angry and frustrated that we're not going to do an hour and a half, right? So you have a little bit over an hour lunch. I'm going to start at 1:45. I'm going to start this next topic of breathing mindfulness meditation. I'm going to teach it to you thoroughly inside and out, and then we'll have time to do a meditation session as well. So enjoy your lunch. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your interest to learn, and I'll see you guys after lunch perhaps. Okay? Sawadee Kap.